across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It's not the weekend, and second of all, it's Petrie. But apart from that, we've started really well. So it is Petrie here with you on this Wednesday evening until 1 o'clock tomorrow morning. And coming up at midnight, which, as you know, is your full hour of you being able to talk back, being able to have your say. And I thought, you know, this is my last show until next week. And the Easter holiday. So I thought, you know what, we're going to go lighter. We're going to have a bit of fun, I hope, if you'll play along with me. And it really was instigated by this story. A French tennis star who was told she needs deodorant and smells really bad by a British rival. Harriet Dart offers a hilarious response. But the idea of having to say to somebody, look, you smell really bad, use a deodorant. I mean, I don't think the way that was done was particularly subtle. But I just wonder if you've ever had to tell somebody something awkward. Like, I don't know, you hate their boyfriend, or you hate their girlfriend, or you don't like their wife, or that their partner is having an affair, or that they've got bad breath, or that they smell. Have you ever had to do that? Maybe it was your mother-in-law or your father-in-law or somebody in your family that you've had to deliver awkward news to. So the more awkward, the better. So please do give me a call as we head off into the Easter bank holiday. By the way, I won't be in on the Monday. I think Phil Dave is sitting in for me, so I won't be here on the Monday. So I'm taking a longer weekend this week. So I just thought we'd have a bit of fun because we've done nothing but really heavy topics recently. So I want to hear your stories of when you've had to have an awkward conversation. So that's what we're going to be talking about at midnight. The rest of the programme, let me go through that for you. We have the fabulous Amy Fisher in the studio, former Director of Communications for the Tory party. She'll be here going through Thursday's newspapers. Talking of Phil Dave, he is going to be here talking about some tech news and the latest Gadget. So it's tech heavy today. I like a bit of tech. Feathercy Turkout will be here, editor of GadgetDetective.com, going through some of the fabulous things that you can go out and buy now and what they will cost and what kind of scores he gives. He is the voice, by the way, on gadgets. He's incredible, and I always take his advice. But before that, and as I was mentioning to Kevin there, the situation with the US government and Iran is getting more and more interesting. Now, we keep hearing, you know, some of the snippy remarks that the US government might make about Iran, the threats of bombing, all of those things. But actually what's going on is a treaty very similar to the one that Obama signed with Iran, which Donald Trump was against. But that is, it looks to me like at the moment that is a very similar deal, and that is that the Iranians will be able to enrich uranium to a very small degree, sort of a couple of percentage points, which can be used for power and things like that. But they wouldn't be able to enrich it to the sort of 60%, 70% level that they would need to make nuclear bombs. So that's kind of what's going on at the moment. Russia has signed a treaty with Iran, and we know that Russia and Iran have been very close with each other. At the same time, just to make this even more complicated, of course, Russia and Washington are in talks about what's happening with Ukraine and trying to stop the Ukraine war, trying to stop the war on Ukraine. So can Donald Trump ride two horses? Can he be tough on Iran and at the same time appease Putin? Will Russia take any spare uranium left over? What is going to happen with this really awkward now sort of triad, this awkward triangle. And if you're thinking, well, it's not really got nothing to do with me, you're completely wrong. Iran has been a rogue state for a very long time. Of course, we know there's been a revolution there. It's very unstable. It's very unstable in the Middle East. Iran has direct line to the Chagos Islands, where there are military, American and British military based there. It's a direct line. It's not close, but it is literally a straight line. And so it does matter. This is a very crucial tipping point in world peace and in geopolitics on the whole. And you couldn't have a more awkward threesome if you tried. To explain more on this and in more depth with more knowledge, Maximilian Hess joins me now as principal at Enmatina Advisory and author of Economic War, Ukraine and the Global Conflict Between Russia and the West, and that's out in paperback tomorrow. Maximilian, thank you very much indeed for joining me. I've just been trying to sort of explain in very basic terms there how awkward and complicated this really is. Where are we on it?
Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me. We're still in the very early stages of both of these negotiations. On the Russia-U.S. talks you talk about, these are still negotiations about getting to real negotiations. We may see some more progress in the next few weeks, May and June, but unlikely to be anything concrete before then. And of course, the most recent ceasefire attempt just came apart. Donald Trump, however, has really surprised a lot of pundits by launching these talks with the Iranians, seemingly with no aims other than restoring the deal that he himself unilaterally abrogated just 7 years ago. This comes off the back of Iran having major losses in the region. Its Syrian proxies in the Assad regime collapsed in December. Its allies in Hezbollah in Lebanon have been heavily defeated by the Israeli military over the last year. And then while it does still have a very close partnership with the Houthi terrorist movement based out of Yemen, the Houthis have also started to kind of act more independently of them. Now, Iran has spent the last year kind of signaling that it doesn't want to lead down the path of wider Middle Eastern escalation, which is part of the reason why it's sort of engaged in all of these show responses to Israel's own aggression. But that Donald Trump is doing this at this time really raises two possibilities. One is that this is a prelude to agreeing some kind of joint strikes with Israel by saying that Iran wouldn't negotiate, or it is a rapid change in his previous policy towards the Iranian regime.
It's very interesting you just said that, Maximilian, because that's exactly what I was thinking as well about Israel, because we know that when Israel had the opportunity perhaps to bomb the nuclear sites in Iran, it didn't take that opportunity. Instead, it went for military targets and very strategic targets. But Donald Trump has already said, if I'd been in charge, I would have given you the clearance to bomb those sites. So, you know, there is always that Israeli threat there, and there is always that relationship that Donald Trump has with Israel, and in wanting to sort of solve the problem of the strength of the proxies of Iran in the Middle East.
Certainly. You know, I think, however, that we're in a situation right now where the Netanyahu government in Israel may be overly aggressive off the back of its recent successes. Of course, the 7th of October was a horrible disaster, the worst to befall the Jewish people since the Holocaust. But Israel since has gone and not only flattened Gaza and committed horrible humanitarian atrocities there, but it is now occupying large portions of Syria, parts of southern Lebanon as well. And there's a risk that Israel will engender further conflict towards it going forward. The Iranian regime is, of course, an inherently horribly anti-Semitic one, and I'm not saying that they are friendly people in any way, but their primary interest is in holding on to power domestically, and there is a real risk that Israel's actions essentially lead to a rallying around the flag effect there, just at a time where support for the Iranian regime has really been wavering.
So if we look at what Iran is doing at the moment in enriching uranium, talk me through that and where the tipping point comes for them to be a really dangerous pariah state with nuclear weapons.
So Iran has had this strategy for many years now, even before the collapse of the JCPOA, the so-called Iran deal, when Trump pulled out of it, before that deal was struck under the Obama administration, of trying to get to a point where essentially they would always be near nuclear, that Iran could just be a few weeks away from a nuclear weapon. So you can find comments by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for more than 10 years ago, where he says Iran is just a few weeks away from a nuclear weapon, we have to act now. You can find comments from Netanyahu 4 years ago, where he says Iran is just weeks away from a nuclear weapon, we have to act now. Or you can find comments from the last few months, Iran is just a few weeks away from a nuclear weapon, we have to act now. The real reason for this is Iran also has to balance out its own tensions and disputes with Saudi Arabia. There has been a bit of a rapprochement there over the last 2 years under Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince and de facto ruler, Mohammed bin Salman, who has essentially really changed the approach that he took in sort of the first 5-6 years in power and sought to de-escalate regional tensions rather than fighting with both Iran and Qatar and other major powers. But there are still very strong disagreements, of course, about both the versions of Islam that the two states follows and who should be the rightful leader of the broader Middle East. So, Iran's strategy hasn't really changed that much there. And again, while one should not defend the Iranian regime, and it is certainly a horrible government that oppresses many of its own citizens and its own women in particular, there are many undemocratic governments around the world who are still rational actors, who still are primarily motivated by their own security concerns and how they should seek to hold on to power. So Iran hasn't really signaled any change in that strategy anytime soon. And in fact, the fact that it has lost these proxies in Syria and in Lebanon, which usually were sort of its ability to react against Israel, or at least that was some of the logic behind supporting them, that then Iran could wage conflict against Israel should there be a major escalation between the two of them. That it hasn't gone and looked to really rapidly escalate this rather surprised me. I thought there was a real risk that between the November U.S. presidential election, which of course Donald Trump won, and his inauguration in January and sort of that lame duck period under Biden, that the Iranians would look to go and develop a nuclear weapon in that time, because frankly they could have done it if they had wanted to.
But now this treaty that Russia has with Iran, what does that mean for the world? What are they giving each other? Is Russia giving them the technology? Is it giving them this odd triangle now of America buddying up to Russia and then trying to deal with Iran, where Iran is buddying up to Russia as well. I mean, it just seems to be a Rubik's Cube that can't be fixed.
Certainly. I'll answer that question in two parts. First on Iran, on Russia's strategy, and then on the U.S.-Russia angle in particular. The Russians have very few allies around the world anymore. They really only have three. Belarus, which is almost a proxy state at this point, Iran, and North Korea. The full-scale invasion of Ukraine 3 years ago has been highly isolating. Russia has signed new security agreements with not only Tehran, but also with Belarus and North Korea over the last year. Interestingly, it's only the North Korean one that includes a mutual defense component. And of course, we've actually seen North Korean soldiers fighting in Russia's Kursk region against Ukrainian forces, and a lot of Russian artillery now is produced in North Korea. Belarus, Russia has deployed nuclear weapons there since 2022, a rather remarkable event that I think hasn't gotten the attention it deserves. This is the first new country to have permanent nuclear weapons deployed in post-Cold War history. Of course, they were there during the Cold War, but then were pulled back along with those from Ukraine as well. The Iranian one is really sort of just a solidifying of the existing relationship and a signaling to both sides, but it doesn't include those core components there. And finally, on sort of your last point there, the U.S. right now under Donald Trump, it is not, we can say whether these were good or bad people or whether their ideas were effective or not, but historically, for the last sort of 50 years in the United States, you had these big thinkers of foreign policy, right? So Anthony Blinken, the most recent Secretary of State under Biden, saw himself as one, perhaps the most famous, just died recently. Henry Kissinger served under multiple presidents of both sides. Donald Trump doesn't subscribe to realism or constructivism or any of these sort of ideas of foreign policy. He ascribes to deal-making as he knows it from his real estate career. And I think he sees in Vladimir Putin a individual whose style of government and whose style of authority he would very much like to emulate himself. But for good or for worse, and sadly I think this is for worse, I think that Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin actually want three of the same things when it comes to the Ukraine conflict and wider geopolitics. Firstly, they want more influence over global natural gas markets, and they want their country to be selling more liquefied natural gas, LNG as it's known. Secondly, they want more influence over the emerging trade routes in the Arctic. That's what Donald Trump's Greenland policy is so much about. And third, this is the real tragedy and the devastating fact, I think, for us as Europeans in particular, is both of them want to loot Ukraine for all of its worth. Not help the country for its own benefit. Now, the problem there is, however, that both those interests are very hard to align with one another. So I think that while there's been a sort of lot of freak out in the liberal media over Donald Trump's man crush on Vladimir Putin, I actually don't think there's going to kind of be this horrible sellout where the U.S. throws the Europeans under the bus because Donald Trump wants to reach some grand bargain with Vladimir Putin to carve up the world together. So it might not be for great reasons that I disagree with a lot of the liberal hysteria there, because both of them will be trying to loot Ukraine in their own ways. But I do think that that sort of idea that there will be, some new Russian-U.S. axis against the Europeans or the like has been overblown.
Let's talk, if we can, in the last few minutes about Russia and Ukraine. We saw that bombing recently in Sumy, and Donald Trump saying that was a mistake, because I would imagine that came directly from the Kremlin. He's still totally against Ukraine. I believe there are other reasons for that, with Joe Biden's son and the laptop, and yes. Donald Trump never forgets anything, does he? He likes revenge. But at what point does this pivot in the favour of Ukraine, if ever?
So I fully agree with you that Donald Trump is primarily motivated by anger over his first impeachment attempt in 2020, which he blames on Zelensky, and was a result of his own attempts to try to influence Zelensky's administration to get so-called dirt on Biden and his son, who, by the way, was up to things in Ukraine that he shouldn't have been doing there. No disagreement there. Reality of it is, though, one is that there still is a lot of bipartisan support for Ukraine across both the Democratic and Republican parties in the United States. We just saw a bill introduced 2 weeks ago into the Congress, backed by 50 senators, 25 Democrats and 25 Republicans, half of each, to essentially make the sanctions against Russia permanent so that Trump couldn't overturn them with the stroke of a pen, and some other forms of direct support there. We're seeing new legislation being brought in to Congress there, as well as Trump angers a lot of the Republican sort of stalwarts, so a lot of the traditional pre-MAGA Republicans in the House in particular. I think we may see more of them willing to break with Donald Trump on this issue. But whether this be from our view in London, our view as Europeans writ large, not the EU, but Europeans, or the view from people in Berlin, Warsaw, Ljubljana, wherever it may be, Europe's security is directly under threat from Vladimir Putin. I don't subscribe to the idea that Donald Trump is going to actually, take over Greenland with an army or something like that, but I do think he doesn't believe in NATO. So the traditional European security umbrella effectively is gone or almost gone. So it is entirely on the European continent and the core European countries to find our own ways to partner together to defend ourselves, rather than look on exporting that to the United States, as has been the case for so long. Now, I think this is a terrible loss for American power and American influence in the world, and this is Washington in many ways, or at least Trump shooting Washington's own strengths in the foot, so to speak. But that's the reality, and I think that's, we can't be sitting here discussing what can we do to get Trump back on board. It has to be what can we do to solve this problem without him.
Yeah, I mean, and without him, we will have to, right? I mean, there is no question about that now. Although, as you said, you don't think
it's either that or you and I hold this conversation in Russian next year, which I'll happily do, but
I'm
might
not
not be
sure
as much fun for you.
I'm not sure my Russian would stand up to that, having been removed from Moscow by the FSB some years ago. But thank you, Max. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much.
I hope we get to talk again. Don't forget, Max's book is out tomorrow, Economic War, Ukraine and the Global Conflict Between Russia and the West. It is out tomorrow and it's right up my street. This is the kind of book that I read, so I'll be looking to read that. Max, thank you very, very much indeed. Max Hess there. Right, quick break, but I'll be back in just a moment talking about the phone-in.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good evening to you. This is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock. And the phone in, your chance to have your say and to talk back. And I just thought, because we're coming into the Easter break now, for the Easter long weekend, I know it's still Easter holidays for schools and things, but I thought we'd just lighten it up a bit. And I want to hear your stories about when you've had to deliver awkward news, right? Maybe you've had to, I don't know, tell your friend that you hate their wife, or that you dislike their husband, or that they smell, or that they've got bad breath. I've had to say that to a friend before. It's very awkward, for her own sake, but it was still horrible. So I just wonder if you've ever had to deliver that sort of awkward news, and how you felt about doing it. And the reason I'm talking about this, there is a news story that is attached to this, and of course it is the British tennis star who Harriet Dart. She's now apologised because when they were switching ends, she said to her opponent that she smelt, that she had bad BO. And that can you tell her to wear deodorant? She's smelling really bad. Now, she went on to lose, and she said, I don't want to carry myself like that. I now apologise, because it is rude, isn't it? You feel rude in having to say that kind of thing. So I just wonder if you've ever had to deliver that kind of news. And I think we probably all have, haven't we? Had to do some awkward stuff and say awkward things, and it just makes you cringe thinking about having to do it. I've had to do it a couple of times in my life. It is not fun. But I'd love to hear from you if you've ever had to say, I don't know, to your mother-in-law that your children don't like her, or they don't want to come and stay with her, or anything like that. Any of those stories where you've had to deal with an awkward and embarrassing moment that you've had to deliver to somebody else, or maybe you've had it done to you. How does that feel, to be told that you smell, or that you've got bad breath, or that they hate your boyfriend, or that they don't like you? So I'd love to hear your stories of that. Just want to lighten things up a bit, because the world is such a gloomy place at the moment that I thought we'd just have a bit of fun. So give me a call, 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and it is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And for those eagle-eyed of you on YouTube, the baby was crying at the door. So I've got the puppy with me, but it won't stop me from moving on and interviewing Fevzi Turkalp, who's editor of the GadgetDetective.com and host of the Gadget Detective podcast. Fevzi, it's been such a long time. Lovely to talk to you.
I've missed you. Is that a Maltese Terrier?
No, he's actually a Shih Tzu, but they look very similar.
How lovely.
Yeah, this is Humphrey. And because he's such a baby, I don't want to leave him at home just yet, so he's having come in, and my poor team are running around after him babysitting, so I've decided I'll have him for a little while. But anyway, it's lovely to see you. I've missed seeing you. It's a real treasure, real treat for me. Talk me through some of these wonderful gadgets. Let's start with, you want to start with is it Deco BE65?
Yeah, so it's from a company called TP-Link, who are been around forever for making internet devices of various sorts, but they've really outdone themselves these times. This is called a Deco BE65. Strangely, it's also known as a Deco BE9300, and I don't know why it's got both. It's actually got both names on the box, you know.
Oh, right. Not confusing at all then.
Yeah, yeah, it is a bit confusing. But what's not confusing is it's just about the best Wi-Fi system out there. So this is designed when you want to actually upgrade your home Wi-Fi or indeed your office Wi-Fi. It uses a new standard called Wi-Fi 7. This box contains 3 of those devices. There's 3 of these.
Oh, it's quite small, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not too bad. And they're 3 identical ones. So it's actually got the number 7 across here.
Oh, I see it, yeah.
And then, so you basically connect this to your router, and then you put the other 2 wherever you want them, so around the house. And they form what's called a Wi-Fi 7 mesh network. And it's called a mesh network because each one of these produces its own Wi-Fi cloud. But they're all named the same, and they mesh together to make one giant Wi-Fi cloud, so you don't get dead spots.
Oh wow, that's
and the
good.
other nice thing, because I've used a lot of these devices before, and the downside has always been, so in my home, for example, the mobile phone signal is atrocious, and the only way that I really get to use my cell phone is with Wi-Fi support, Wi-Fi enabled. So it's still a normal call, but you see that it allows Wi-Fi calling. But that's only going to be as good as your Wi-Fi. And what would happen is I walk around and I move from one mesh node's cloud to another one, just temporarily, it would just unlock and lock, and then it would drop the call. And this does not do that. I actually ran around the house. It's the first time for a long time. I ran around the house and I couldn't get it to drop. And I did it with a video FaceTime call with, it's a higher data rate, and it was doing it really well. So what's special about Wi-Fi 7 is that normal Wi-Fi these days has 2 frequencies that it uses. It uses 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. 5 is faster, but it has less range. 2.4 slower, longer range. But the problem is, especially if you live in an area with, like flats or with close neighbors, there's a lot of contention, a lot of people using those, which is why very often you get slow or unreliable signals. Wi-Fi 7 has the 2.4 and the 5. It also has a 6. No one else gets 6. So this is the time to use Wi-Fi 7 because there's no one else on it. It's like having a motorway to yourself.
Oh, wow.
It's quite spectacular. Very cool. And it's not just a choice of 2.4, 5 or 6. You can have all 3 of them combined. So if you've got a modern phone or a modern laptop, for example, you can combine them to get these super fast speeds. The other thing is, if you look at the back of this, you see these 1, 2, 3, 4 connectors. These are all network connectors that run at 2.5 gigahertz. That's 2.5 times as fast as normal. So you can use that to connect the different ones together, so they can not only connect wirelessly, but even faster through an Ethernet wire, if you can be, bothered to run it, and you get much more reliability, lower latency. So if you've got someone at the far end of the house doing gaming, it's still going to work.
Wow.
So quite remarkable. Now, these are not cheap. Each one comes out at about £200. If you buy the 3 pack, it's about just under 600. It's about 580 or something like that. So but what you can do is
how far future-proofed is this, do you think?
Well, put it this way. Apple haven't made a Mac with Wi-Fi 7 on it yet. So it's very good. It's going to be good for a long time, because there was Wi-Fi 6, and then there was 6E, which was, an improvement, but not great. Wi-Fi 7 is a big step up, and it will stay faster than your devices and faster than, to give you an example, the fastest internet speed we get in the UK at the moment, I think, is Virgin, which is up to 1 gigabit down. This will transmit from around the system up to 9.3 gigabits.
Wow.
So you've got a lot of
future-proofing. Yeah, that is amazing.
And we're actually using it because the one that I've unplugged to show you this is not the one that I'm closest to. So that gives us more robust. So I'm doing this call and I'm risking Wi-Fi, which I wouldn't normally do. I'd normally have a wired connection on it, but I can actually risk the Wi-Fi because it's got a lot of redundancy in it. If my neighbour fires up 2.4 and kicks me off my band, it doesn't matter, because I've got my own superhighway, as it were. Do you remember they used to call it the information superhighway?
Yeah.
Before it was the internet. No one ever says that anymore.
No one says that anymore.
Now you've got 6 gigahertz, but this is the time to get it, because you get it to yourself. Almost no one's got it so far.
That is,
So,
I mean, that is impressive. And for those people who've got a lot of use in their home, this would be perfect, wouldn't it? Especially like if
yeah.
you've got a couple of kids that are gaming, or you work from home, or you're a designer or something like that,
Yeah.
and you need that extra bandwidth. I mean, that's worth it. It's
Well,
expensive, but it's worth it.
this also, let's say we're doing this stream. It doesn't matter if someone else in my household decides to fire up a 4K video to watch at the same time. And it's got some really clever tricks, like I can give myself priority. So little Johnny with his 4K video is not going to make my video call collapse. If you don't have Wi-Fi 7, that's the thing, because a lot of computers don't have it, then you get one of these little boxes here. This is an adapter made by TP-Link as well. Let me just...
Okay, if you bring it down,
there we go. There we go. I get it. I'm getting myself confused. So this is a little adapter. It looks like a
windmill.
It looks like a USB dongle.
Right.
See, and it does have a USB connector at this one end here. And then what you can do is you can just do this, and you've got a really nice antenna on it. Plug it into your computer, so it plugs into your Windows PC or laptop. If you don't want to plug a great big thing like this into your directly into your computer, you get a little charging dock with a cable on it as well. So that's about £70. So that's, that updates your older computer. And as I say, not many computers have Wi-Fi 7 built into them yet, but they will. This year and next year, you'll see. I think all the new Apple machines, for example, will have Wi-Fi 7, probably starting around October, I imagine.
Yeah, and we know what price Apple's going to be from now on, so maybe it's better to
scary. Can I just tell you something about that? Because I was feeling kind of smug when I saw these tariffs, because I'm not a very nice person, but when I saw them and I thought, oh, these Americans are going to have to pay more. Sony have just slapped £40 on the PlayStation 5 in the UK.
Yeah.
And I think what they're trying to do is spread it around, so that although it's imports into the USA, they're going to subsidize, I think, USA prices by charging Europeans and others more. So what I would say to you is, if you're planning I was thinking of this because I was thinking of buying myself a MacBook Pro laptop from Apple, and I was thinking, if I can wait till October, I'll get the new one. The new ones come out, and I'm now thinking I don't want to do that, because Apple usually don't take this as a promise, but they don't usually put up the prices during the life of a particular year's machine. So the M4 computers, the current ones, probably won't go up in price. Please don't quote me, because these are extraordinary times. But come the new generation, there'll probably be a good deal more. And now that Sony has shown this model, others can afford to do it too, because now if you make a Microsoft Xbox, for example, you can charge more in the UK as well. Once one has done it, the others may follow. And I rather fear that we may, it may be the time to buy the gadgets that you need. I'm not trying to push people to buy things they can't afford, but the days of thinking, it's going to come down in price may not be.
That's a very good point. I hadn't even thought of that they would try to subsidise the pricing that is going to be so high in America by charging us more around the world, which makes perfect business sense to do that.
Well, yeah, it's not very nice, is it? But
it's not very nice, but, anyway, everything's expensive anyway. Talk to me about the Rode Streamer X.
Okay, so this is the Rode Streamer X. It's this little gadget here, and this is for people who want to do content creation on their computers. So it's a combination. It's an audio interface, so you can plug what's called an XLR connector here. That's a pro level connector for a good quality microphone. But at the same time here, you've got 3 USB-C connectors. One connects to the power, but the other allow this to be connected to 2 different computers via USB-C. So what you can do with that is, on one of them, you could perhaps record the audio and the video that this deals with, and the other one, maybe you could stream it live. So if you were a gamer or a podcaster,
Rode
you
are
can
really
do
clever, aren't they, at doing all this
now?
now?
Because this is quite a unique device, because normally you get audio interfaces or you get video capture cards. This has got a video capture card built in, and it's got standard HDMI connectors here. Yeah. So with that, you see it's got in and through, so you can take it, say, from a high quality camera that you're using as your webcam. It will capture it. It will turn it into the USB-C so you can record it. So your high-end camera becomes a really high-quality webcam, effectively.
Wow.
And it allows you to capture the video. These buttons are great. These buttons allow you can either record into them, say, the bed, your intro, your outro, maybe your commercial break, whatever you want to do, or you can do sound effects with these. We've done before the little girl voice and the monster voice and the robot. This does all of those. You remember that big unit that we talked about, the Rodecaster Pro 2? This has got exactly the same processor in it and exactly the same effects. So it's got the compressor, the limiter, everything built in.
It's tiny.
Yeah, and the reason why I mentioned this is when I first reviewed this, it was 350, and now it's about 185. Yeah,
That's
if you want to buy,
good.
so it's on Amazon. If you want to buy it from Amazon, it's 195. You can buy from resellers, but there's a camera center. You can get it £10 cheaper. Personally, I'd spend the extra £10 and have the benefit of Amazon's return policy, because if it doesn't work for you, it's not compatible, or you just don't like it, you can send it back within 30 days. Whereas when you buy from a third party through Amazon, if it's not fulfilled by Amazon, you're bound by the returns policy.
Yeah.
Well, if it's not fulfilled by Amazon, you're bound by the returns policy of the third party, which is not good.
I mean, the Rode, I'm so impressed by what they do. I really am. And the gadgets, because a lot of people are doing all that. And I might do a podcast when I grow up. It'd be good to have
So that's called the Streamer X, and I've given it 4 stars. Do I have time to quickly just tell you that I did a bad thing?
Yes.
Yeah, I bought another synthesizer.
Oh, how many have you got now?
I don't want to embarrass myself, really. I could use them as furniture probably at this point.
So tell me about this multimedia.
Okay, so this is Italian, right? This is a company called IK Multimedia. They're Italian. It's called the Uno Synth Pro X. And I don't know if we can flash up a picture of it, but it's a small device. It's about yay big.
Right.
And it's a monophonic analog synthesizer. So it uses the same sort of circuitry as the classic synths of the 70s and 80s. Those big, fat, brassy synthetic noises. So, think, I don't know, Depeche Mode or Kraftwerk.
That's exactly what I was thinking about.
Yeah. All of that, or even a bit of Duran Duran. So this thing used to cost €500, so 400 and something pounds, priced in euros. I think it's gone end of life, so I bought one quickly, £225 from, there's a German company called Thomann, Thomann, and they're in Germany, but they ship to the UK, and you get a UK invoice and UK VAT and everything like that, and you get a 3-year warranty. £225. I didn't need it, but it was going to be rude if I didn't buy it.
What do you do with all these synthesizers? You just sit and synthesize music the whole time?
Can I be honest? I spend more time choosing and buying them and learning them and demonstrating them than I do making music. I think I've become more of a collector than I was never a musician, but more joy in collecting than anything.
Look, we all have a hobby.
I've done so well, in not buying stuff. But this one, when it went end of life, and I knew that they were going to run out, and I checked and they said, yeah, we're not making them anymore. This is a classic, and this would compete. There's a Roland unit that this would compete with, and that's twice the price of this.
You've convinced yourself. I love a technical geek. I love you. I think you're a most amazing man, Febsy. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that. Come back soon, won't you?
Podcast, I'm just going to have more synthesizers.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, when I do my podcast, I will get you in on my show to talk about synthesizers for the full hour. How about that?
Bless you. I know you won't, but thank you anyway.
Febsy, thank you so much. Come back soon. Febsy Turk out there, editor of the GadgetDetective.com and host of the Gadget Detective podcast. He always manages to find the most brilliant gadgets. I absolutely love it. Right, stay where you are, because we're going to be talking to the Chic Geek next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a good evening to you. It is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And coming up at the top of the hour is Amy Fisher. She'll be here to go through Thursday's newspapers. Before that, though, it is time to get cheeky and geeky with Phil Dave, broadcaster. And Phil, I understand you're sitting in for me on Monday.
I know, yes. Try not to scare everyone off ahead of it happening, but yeah, I believe that is the plan, yes.
Good, excellent. Well, thank you very much.
It will be a great honour to keep your seat warm.
Thank you, and thank you for stepping in so that I can have a much-needed extra day off. So, Phil, talk to me about, this is a really interesting story, this, and I have been quite fascinated by this because we know that Mark Zuckerberg is now great friends with Donald Trump. So I'm surprised this is even going ahead, but it needs to under anti-competition and antitrust laws because there's so much power being held by such a few these technical oligarchs, these technocrats, if you like. So this is the US Federal Trade Commission is accusing Meta of buying Instagram and WhatsApp over a decade to neutralise its competition, to knock out the little guys, and they want to break it up. Is this likely to happen?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, I would say that if you were to base it on what happened with Microsoft back in I think it was around the mid-90s, I remember the Federal Trade Commission, as it were, doing something very similar. And they said that Microsoft had become far too powerful. It had total monopoly on all of the world of technology then. I mean, it's less so now. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still pretty big, but it's not quite what it used to be. And in the end, if my memory serves me right, although that the kind of ruling was they had to divide and sell up bits of it, it didn't really happen. So I suppose you could argue that with Trump in power, it's even less likely to happen, but it doesn't mean that it won't. So just to sort of put it out there to actually explain what Meta, who is the parent company behind Facebook, behind WhatsApp, behind Instagram, could be facing, it is possible that they will have to sell off both Instagram and WhatsApp. Now, to give you some context as to sort of how dramatic this will be for the likes of Zuckerberg, it is anticipated that I believe the revenue of Instagram is something like over half of the revenue of the company.
Wow.
Comes from the advertising from Instagram. So you can imagine Mark Zuckerberg won't be happy about this, to say the least. It's basically going to halve the value of his company if it does have to go ahead.
Mind you, he will get the price of selling it. So, I mean, he's not going to be giving it away. But I was reading, as you know, I have no life. So I was reading about this and what the problems are and what happens when these companies hold such an enormous, corner of like social media, if you like, in this case. And that is, they say it suppresses innovation. Because if they start knocking out all these little companies that are innovating, then there isn't the impetus for people to invent new things. And when Microsoft was looked at in that way, and other companies have been broken up, it has led to new innovation coming through. So it's actually fresh for the market. It's good for the consumer to have more choice. It always has been good for the consumer to have more choice. And it also worries me.
I suppose if you translate this into a more sort of understandable level for those who maybe don't necessarily have their head around tech giants, look at the high street. If you look at the high street as a perfect example of this, high street rates are so ridiculously expensive that only the large brands can afford it.
Yeah.
And all of the smaller independent shops are disappearing. And a lot of people understandably get upset by that. So actually, if you compare tech giant world with that, suddenly it makes more sense.
But it also, looking at cornering the information market as well, you get a situation where, there is so much power in so few hands. The entirety of the media in the US, for example, the huge United States of America is 6. there are 6. When you look at where the company ends up, there are only 6 owners of all that information, and I think
out of 320 million odd people.
Exactly.
That's
a
quite
lot
small
of
number.
That's a lot of power in a very few number of hands, and this is why in times past Murdoch has been looked at to divest parts of his empire, because the thought of that I think he was stopped from buying other newspapers in the UK at one point, just to stop one person having that much control on information and that much control on data, our data. It can't be a bad thing. Like you, I think with Trump in power, it is less likely to happen. But let's watch this. Let's watch this space. Google facing a similar thing, though.
Yeah, it was just interesting that both of these stories happened to be in the news this week, so I just thought let's merge the two together, because Google is actually being sued for around £5 billion right here in the UK. It's accused of abusing its dominance in the online search market, and the actual class action claims that Google struck a deal with phone makers to pre-install its applications, and it also paid to be the default search engine within Apple, so it's limiting the competition. And as a result, businesses have had little choice but to rely on Google Ads to reach their customers. So Google denies any wrongdoing, of course, saying that people use its services because they are genuinely useful. But the case adds to global pressure, of course, on Google, which is also facing antitrust trials in the US and investigations in the EU. So the UK, you can see Google's going through a bit of a rough time at the moment. But the UK's competition watchdog began a similar probe back in around January, highlighting that Google handles around, I think it's 90% of UK searches.
Yeah.
So if courts rule against it, Google may be forced to change how it operates and possibly even, I've heard this before, break up parts of its ad business.
I don't search for things, I Google for things, right? We all do. It's just become the language now, hasn't it?
I was going to say, it's the same kind of language as Hoover.
Yeah,
because actually
exactly.
It's a vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
Hoover is a brand.
Yeah.
But we all say it, don't we?
Yeah, even if I'm using Safari, for example, I'll say I'm Googling it. That it just is, that it's just become such a market
I'm going
leader.
to split hairs, and I don't have many of those to split. Safari is a browser, which is the actual sort of the program you use to access search engines such as Google, Yahoo, Ask, all of that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just go onto Safari and it does what I ask it to, so I don't know about these things.
I'm a geek. I can't help it.
No,
Sorry.
I know. It's fair enough. I love a geek. Now, talk to me about this woman conceiving a child with the help of a robot.
Yeah, I apologise in advance. This could get a little bit graphic, but hey, it is around 5 to 11, so let's go for it and bear with me here. But a 40-year-old woman who had previously faced challenges with IVF recently gave birth to a baby that was conceived using an AI-operated, hold that thought, sperm-injecting robot. Now, they're developed by one Dr. Jack Cohen and his team at Conceivable Life Sciences. They're based in New York.
Right.
The robot automates all 23 steps, yes, I didn't know 23 steps either, of the intracytoplasmic sperm injection process, or the ICSI. Fortunately, it's abbreviated to. So during the procedure, the robot selects and it basically immobilizes the healthiest of sperm using a laser before injecting it into the donor eggs. And the automated system, which was apparently employed at a clinic in Mexico, resulted in 4 fertilized eggs out of 5, so leading to a very successful pregnancy and ultimately birth. So this advancement addresses, I suppose, variability, if you like, in manual ICSI procedures. And it also is basically sort of, instead of being performed by embryologists, which can, of course, be influenced by some human factors, such as fatigue, shall we say, distraction, maybe. I mean, I don't know who distracted being an embryologist, but, I suppose it could happen. And the robot's precision and consistency offers potential improvements in IVF success rates and could reduce costs, it's very important to say could, with human labour. However, this is a slight snag, experts are actually suggesting that larger trials are necessary to confirm the technology's effectiveness, and that actually the high costs may limit widespread adoption in the short term. But the bottom line is that it's a step in the right direction. The case study shows that it's successful in cases where people have not been successful before. And you know I'm mildly obsessed with technology helping the world of medicine.
Yeah, no, I think that I mean, and all of these things will be really expensive to begin with, but then the more they get used, the cheaper that they become. A new design for Airbus.
Yes, just quickly, because I know we're a bit up against it, but Airbus has basically unveiled an updated design for its zero-E hydrogen-powered aircraft, which is aiming to revolutionise aviation. So this will be a case of trying to offer zero-emission commercial flights. And the new concepts, which feature 4 individual electrically powered motors equipped with its own hydrogen fuel cell system, keep up here, will convert hydrogen into electricity to power the aircraft. Now, electrical aircrafts of such that have been unveiled recently suggests that it's relying more on a charge of a battery, whereas with hydrogen, it has the ability to self-charge.
Well, that's
and that's
good
what
news.
makes this exciting.
Because we don't want the battery to run out halfway across
Really
the
don't want the
Atlantic.
battery to run out halfway across.
No, we really don't want that. Phil, thank you very much indeed. And so just to let everybody know that Phil Dave will be here Monday evening from 10 until 1. Enjoy the show when you're in here. Have fun. So that's Phil Dave there. And like I said, he'll be with you through the bank holiday. Then I won't be here. Coming up, Amy Fisher will be here to go through Thursday's newspapers. So stay where you are.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good, I was going to say hello, just good to have your company for the next hour. And with me in the studio is Amy Fisher, who's a former Director of Communications at the Conservative Party. Wasn't it to get that absolutely right? Amy, it's good to see you. Thank you for coming in. And look, before we start going through the papers, have you ever had to, you're Director of Communications, right? Have you ever had to deliver some awkward news to somebody?
Goodness gracious me. I mean, literally what's flashing through my mind there is what are the things that I've had to say to sort of ministers, secretaries of state that it would be any way repeatable on air.
You don't have to tell me who they are.
Well, it's going to be sort of really obvious. Okay, no, look, this isn't, the company's not, oh, they are that bad. I'm literally wincing with the memory. Okay, so I used to work for Chris Grading when he was Justice Secretary in the Ministry of Justice about 10 years or so ago now. And if we remember at the time, there was this kind of literary phenomenon called the 50 Shades of Grey, that sort of quite sexy, sort of book. And it was becoming, it was so sort of popular in the female prisons that so many copies were being stolen from the prison libraries. It was actually sort of becoming quite a big problem, and I had to go and sort of just sort of mention this to Chris, because there's a sort of certain issue around prison library at the time anyway, and I was trying to sort of hope that he would get, when I looked at him meaningfully and said there's a particular book called 50 Shades of Grey and stolen copies are being found annotated, that he would sort of, if I stared at him kind of meaningfully enough, he would understand sort of greyling, that sort of he'd understand maybe what was being... No, so that conversation became very, very painful. And then sort of not very long after that, because actually in prison, I mean, I was surprised to learn this when I did start working as a special advisor in the Ministry of Justice, but in this country, contraceptive protection and water-based lubricants are provided to prisoners. Yes, that too was my reaction.
What?
But as a matter of yes, that too was my reaction and that of ministers. And then it was sort of very clearly explained to me that people in prison are going to have sex with each other, and actually there is a bigger...
They don't need contraception
is a,
in women's prison.
Well, because obviously in men's prisons it's condoms that are provided. Yeah. In women's prisons it's dental dams. So I also had to explain to the Justice Secretary what a dental dam was.
No!
I did not. I don't think anybody found that a fun day at work. So yes, very quickly, you are awkward. Sorry, awkward is like this very British kind of understatement. I've actually, the back of my neck has gone just really very prickly and hot, just with this sort of decade-old memory of this. And you've gone with the word, oh, that was a bit awkward, was that, Amy?
I'm British.
Yes, well, you nailed the understatement in that. So yes, in answer
trauma
very quickly to a question of have I ever had to explain something difficult, I think I've just given two very good examples that instantly came to mind.
I mean, I was thinking more along the line of having to tell Boris Johnson to brush his teeth or have a shower.
Oh, I've taken that. Telling Boris Johnson to brush his teeth is like a dot, the line of which has been crossed is so far at the edges of my memory that there's all kind of spectrum of stuff that when you sort of work in politics or journalism already where you're sort of in the public eye, and then when you're working closely with people who are all sort of fallible themselves at the end of the day, where there will be sort of personal things that may be fallible, like telling somebody they need to brush their hair or knot their tie or brush their teeth,
or they've got VO,
or they've got VO, then right up to these just kind of unseen policy scenarios that you did not expect to be dealing with when you turned up to work that morning.
But it's just because you're Director of Communications, I mean, you're the one that puts these people out in front of the cameras, right?
Yeah, and you have to prepare them.
And
it's
you have
your
to
job.
prepare them. So if they've got sweaty armpits or they've got or they smell because there's lots of press there and everything, you literally would have to say to them, go and have a shower.
Well, there would be I think you'd find this amongst a lot of communication specialists, or sort of a lot of the special advisors who are in and around ministers and the Prime Minister and everyone down for the Prime Minister. You'd have kind of your little kit, like, and you obviously have as a woman, and maybe some men do as well, you have your own kind of makeup kit you carry around in your handbag all day every day, and I would have like a separate little sort of like fix-it kit, which was everything from if they're because obviously usually if you're going to most television studios there would be makeup kind of people, but then if you're having to move very quickly from location to location, I have my own I know what the pound sort of shade of powder any the sort of ministers I've worked with was because you sort of had to, just in case you needed to give them like a little bit of dust.
Mints.
Mints. My other little trick was always to have like a kind of mini stapler, because sometimes if there's that last minute cuff that comes down on a trouser or even on a jacket, and you don't have time to like get your sewing kit out, so it's like a little staple to make sure.
I need you in my life, Amy.
Like presentable. So no, all of it. But I was not. It's not like I was not like sort of the only person to do this. This was just you sort of ended up leaving the house in the morning, kind of going, watch, wallet, spectacles, my own makeup. Oh. So the second kit of kind of stuff for however I'm going to be out and about
Imagine what
with.
Donald Trump's team have to do.
Let's not even think about the shade of kind of powder they're kind of trying to match that up from Clinique or wherever.
That is, and according to some rumours as well, nappies. I mean that.
We've talked a little bit about bodily functions right at the top of the show, and not only I think that you and I are feeling a bit uncomfortable, but goodness knows what this has done to maybe some poor unsuspecting listeners who are not envisaging
prepared.
this level of chat.
I think it's brilliant because I was just talking about that because of the tennis player who said, "Oh, you stink," or make sure she wears. I mean, it's
yes.
Although I don't think she did it with the same grace as you would have done it.
I think maybe the 10 years hiatus has allowed me just to have that kind of distance and put some professional gloss.
But I can see the trauma on your face.
It was like, it's just because I really
it's
probably
the
am
dental
revealing.
dams that got me.
No, because I didn't even know what they were. Like, so I was sitting in the sort of special advisor's office, and had found out this thing about sort of condoms and dental dams. Gosh, what's going on there? And then you kind of think, actually, that is going to prevent more health related issues in a prison. And I turned round to the special advisor at the time, who was a chap, and I sort of said, "Do you know what a dental dam?" I was like, well, should we go and ask somebody? And he was just like, no, I think we should try and find out ourselves. I was like, how? Like, Google it on the office computer. So he was just like, so then we sort of ascertained what a dental dam was, and I was like, I took the hit on explaining to the Justice Secretary what 50 Shades of Grey grading
so you
was.
can do the dental.
And he literally left the room. We're very good friends, but 10 years later, I still remind at the time, Will, when you just literally left, you just walked off. He didn't even try and have the argument, or let's flip a coin, or gosh, this is awkward for both of us. He just left.
Typical.
Yes, typical man, some might say.
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall while you were trying to explain what
there might have been a right. How to explain this?
Not good. It's not good. Oh, Amy, thank you. You've really cheered me up. Mine now are insignificant. I had to tell a friend that she had bad breath because she was desperately trying to find a boyfriend, and every time she got, really bad breath, and I had to say. And
sometimes as a friend, you have to.
Yeah, but that is
slightly
so
cruel
awkward,
to be quite. It is, but it is the being cruel.
But it's nothing compared to explaining to a justice minister about a dental dam. So thank you for that. That's I think you take the prize.
You're welcome.
Let's turn our attention to the papers, and we've got the Arizona Republic. There are so many newspapers across America. It actually is embarrassing that we don't have more, to be honest with you. But anyway, the Arizona Republic here. Again, a lot of stories because there is so much going on in the US at the moment. Let's take our attention to the El Salvador, the lawyers challenging the incarceration of in El Salvador of more than 200 Venezuelans deported by the United States said that the Salvadorian government is denying the prisoners access to attorneys and contact with the outside world. But that's kind of what we expected, wasn't it? When we see these mega cages, they're not really prisons, they're holding pens. They're warehousing them. Yeah. So these people, these 200 people who were in America who've been accused of being of criminals and gang members, and I say accused because nobody knows because they didn't go through any due process whatsoever before they were exported, are being denied visits, they're being denied lawyers. I mean, America is heading very quickly to a constitutional crisis, and I don't say that lightly because Donald Trump is refusing to do what the US Supreme Court is telling him to do.
Don't look like they're budging either. So it's absolute constitutional stalemate. And just to be really clear, these kind of this sort of prison warehouses where there's a lot of gangs and gangbangers and drug traffickers, and the US has got some kind of financial deal whereby
$6 million a year.
They're paying to send these people to these mega warehouses. They're kind of mega warehouses with like these horrendous kind of Channel 5 documentaries get made about. Do you know what I mean? We are talking about that level of 2,000-3,000 people made to sort of kneel down for kind of and kept sort of pretty close to naked or just with like white boxers on. We are talking very not just the size of them, but the very conditions in which people are being held, and the idea that and this is not to apply some kind of liberal woody viewpoint on the fact that gang warfare and drug traffickers and it can be incredibly violent along that border and the associated ills, but the idea that you can just be sort of shipped off, and even when one bit of the American machinery of state is saying no, absolutely your rights have been violated, and the other side, the political side, is saying,
don't care.
I mean that's just that's just a really terrifying.
But this has never been tested before. I mean, at least with British politics, we've got the ability to we got rid of Liz Truss, for example, right? It is possible in the middle of but there's nothing like that in America. It would seem, apart from impeachment, which is a very high bar.
But we've also Donald Trump got a president who just fundamentally doesn't care about the niceties of law. So even if you had legal recourse, be it an extreme, very difficult one to achieve, like impeachment, I think he would just sort of sit there and go on then, guys, do it.
Yeah.
Have a go.
But that's what I'm saying, is that it's never been tested before that a president would just go, no, to the US Supreme Court. This is their system, I think, is exposing the weaknesses that there have been, which have been sort of run on a matter of trust, not on a matter of law.
A contract of trust, that's exactly it.
It's exactly
And when
it.
one half of the contract broker, in this case Trump, just as you say, goes no, and the other side sort of you have the kind of shock at the moment of like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Sorry, and then you can look and go, but I don't actually now have any bargaining trips. If you're just saying no at me, and I'm sort of going, oh, but you can't do that, and you're just kind of looking back into the whites of my eyes, I have there's no recourse there, which is, as I said, I mean, I sort of don't want to get necessarily into the sort of premise upon which these prisons were built and the exact nature and severity.
Well, that's up to El Salvador.
That's
right?
up to El Salvador.
Exactly.
But when we are talking about an erosion of principle, so fundamentally basic of imprisonment without any legal necessarily underpinning, apart from, as I say, this financial deal that Trump seems to have agreed with the El Salvadoran government, then we are kind of in quite a dystopian.
Well, especially when he's saying things like you're going to have to build, on a hot mic moment, saying you're going to have to build more prisons because we're going to send homegrowns. This is a test case, isn't it? Because it means that he can, and the US Supreme Court can do nothing about it.
Well, it's sort of, I mean, I just by chance happened to be reading an article yesterday about the fact that he's also deporting people, and whether deporting is rightly or wrongly the word, actually, because usually deportation applies if you don't have the right to be somewhere, but I'm using deport as a general coverall for sending people out of America to Haiti. Haiti, which is literally lawless. It's sort of Médecins Sans Frontières, an organisation which has a decades-long proud history of working in some of the most dangerous places in the world. Literally just before Christmas last year said we know the plight of Haitians is desperate, but we cannot work there anymore because we are so frightened for our staff. Sort of 85% of Port-au-Prince, the Haitian capital, is run by gangs who are literally running around, setting people on fire, and Trump is sending people back to Haiti full in the knowledge it's not a remotely
safe place.
Not a remotely safe place. So the reason why I brought that into it is he just seems to have this. He just seems to have taken a broad stance that if I don't want you, in the United States, well, I'm just going to get rid of you, irrespective of whatever your landing place and but whether you should be being sent back there or not, whether it's legally defensible,
not even
and
back
whether
there. He's sending people who've not been to the country into countries that they've never been there.
This is what I mean.
So
about I'm using deported for a broad scale.
But this brings me to the other story on the front page of the Arizona Republic, which is absolutely terrifying. The Department of Homeland Security sent notices to migrants telling them their parole had been terminated and they had 7 days to leave the country. Pamela Rioles Said received one of the notices on April the 11th, but Rioles Said is not a migrant. She's a US citizen who was born in Boston and works as an immigration lawyer in Tucson. Several other US citizens in Arizona also received the same DHS notification telling them it's time for you to leave the United States. A US citizen who is an immigration lawyer in Boston also received one of the parole terminations. And the parole terminations are part of the Trump administration's crackdown, an expanding immigration crackdown and mass deportation agenda. They tell migrants paroled into the United States, so they're given leave to remain. By Biden administration, their parole has been terminated along with their work permits, and unless they've obtained another lawful basis to remain in the US, they should leave immediately. If you do not depart the United States immediately, you'll be subject to potential law enforcement actions that will result in your removal from the United States. And we all know now what that means. So these people who have been given the leave to remain have built lives, have got jobs, families. They are being told they have got 7 days to leave the country. And what's even more terrifying is that people who were born in the country, who are working for immigration, who he clearly doesn't like because of that, are being told to leave.
But this is what I mean. It's just, can you imagine being caught up in that vortex of just, the system
Horror.
just saying no? I mean, dystopian is one word I've already used, but it's sort of kind of slightly Kafkaesque.
Yeah.
You're trying to argue with the system and say, no, but I was born here, I've been given the right to remain.
Yeah, but your parents were migrants.
And still being, I've worked here 30 years, and still being told you have to.
7 days.
These kind of Orwellian, as I say, this is just the sort of stuff of 1950s, political horror stories, but no, this is actually happening to people on the ground, getting this stuff, and this sort of 7 days get out of, otherwise essentially,
you'll be shipped off to El Salvador.
Yes.
And these are US citizens. This is. I don't even know what I can say about that. And there'll be lots of people listening perhaps going, well, we should do that with our own migrants. And the problem is that these people, like I said, they are citizens of the US.
Most Ukrainians are sort of caught up.
Ukraine has been told to get out, as well.
But this sort of speaks to so it also quoted in the paragraph of the story you're just talking about, it's, about 900,000 asylum seekers were paroled into the US, into the US under the Biden administration. So again, it sort of speaks to, does anybody, either politically, or in this case with regards to your sort of socio-economic immigration status, or anything we've just seen about the shifting sands over, the tariffs, and actually they're paused for 90 days, is kind of mad swirling around of the pendulum on anything that Trump is saying at any given point, be it, as I said, any
it'd be terrifying.
Political, social, economic, judicial, any of these spheres. You just permanently feel like the tectonic plates are moving beneath you, and you just don't know where you are. Either, as I say, in this case, person as individual, if you've suddenly received one of these threatening missives to leave the country within 7 days, or on a grand, by which I mean, between countries, sort of economic, political level of, well, how are we meant to trust you as somebody in business when I don't know whether you're going to say something 1 minute and 36 hours completely change your mind on what any kind of tariff or economic arrangement might be. I think
the chaos is the point.
God, see, that's what I was going to go on to say. I think
the chaos is the point.
Up until about 2 weeks ago, I think the kind of the thing was, is it madness? Is it genius? Is he playing a four-dimensional chess? He's the guy with the art of the deal.
He didn't even write that book.
Well, but there's that, and I never believed in that shtick anyway, and I'm going to call it a shtick because I think it's fairly easy to poke holes into it anyway, whatever kind of game he's ever tried to talk since the 70s. But I think there were some who were sort of just about believing in that. Oh, it's Trump. He does this. He says he takes this grand position over here, and it's a bit the kind of shock and awe. So then when he resiles from it, people kind of think, oh, that's not that bad, and they feel sort of grateful to him having moved back to a more realistic position, and that was kind of the tactic. But all of this is now the chaos, though, and being exposed as such in a way, to me, is so chaotic, does feel a bit different from, say, 3 or 4 weeks ago.
I agree, and I think that a lot of the chaos is a good day to bury bad news, and luckily the newspapers are picking up on that. Amy, let's take a break, and we will be back in a moment to have a look through the papers for tomorrow.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you, and with me is Amy Fisher, and we're going through the newspapers for Thursday. Let's start with the Eye. This is interesting. I mean, I've heard this said of Tesla. And it was one of my, let me read the headline first of all, then everybody will know what I'm talking about. Electric cars with Chinese parts banned from the UK military sites amid spying fears. And the story that I heard about Tesla was a driver who drives me sometimes, who drives for government. And he said that they've had to change the cars because the Teslas are no longer allowed to drive into the Ministry of Defence or Security or something like that because of the number of cameras that are on a Tesla. So this must be the same thing.
I don't know in specificity about that MOD example, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, in broad terms, I obviously won't say specifically sort of exactly where and when, but I have had experience in my government career where you just can't take mobile phones into certain parts of a building. It's not even that you shouldn't be like on your mobile phone. It's just no, the phones are all locked in here, and it's not that they're worried that you're going to be like taking photos of secret papers. It's they're more sort of worried about
the phone listening,
the device being compromised in some way, which you're entitled assumption that people are trying to do anything nefarious. And just again, this goes to the sort of infrastructure issues that we have been aware of for some time. You know, not least we've just had over the weekend and having to kind of rescue the steel plant in Sculthorpe. We've had the questions of, well, how did we let a kind of Chinese, how did we leave ourselves so exposed in the first place as being in a position of not being able to produce virgin steel? Oh, but then also the plant is owned by somebody Chinese. Again, I'm not suggesting that that particular Chinese owner in this instant over British Steel at that moment had any sort of grand design, but just we have to ask these questions of ourselves the same way back,
especially with infrastructure.
Particularly with infrastructure, and particularly with kind of potential communications data breaches. Like in terms of steel plant, we're talking about the production of stuff. What this is more about is I say, sort of data communication breaches, which again is exactly the same concerns we had over Huawei sort of 4 or 5 years ago,
I remember that.
and why the British government actually in that case were quite firm and said, no, you cannot be, said to all telecoms companies, Huawei cannot be involved in your provision of 5G, because that it just leaves it. I mean, that's not even a back door that's been built in. That's literally a big open door with like a welcome sign above it.
Quite.
These are not new concerns. I guess I'm sort of just pleased that the government and us, the general public, are becoming a bit more wise to them.
It's an awkward time though, Amy, isn't it? Because with America being more isolationist, and certainly the markets now between the US and the rest of the world are being impacted by these tariffs. We are now looking for a closer relationship with China, right? Because it's the biggest. It is literally a factory, isn't it? It's the biggest manufacturer of things. So, and you know, if they're going to buy stuff from us more, then we might get away with not selling to America so much. We don't have to do stupid deals with America to take their rotten chlorinated chicken, you know, or things like that. So we've got this is a delicate path now to tread between the US. I never thought I'd be ever saying this, because I've always been completely anti-China. But actually, at the moment, I'm kind of looking at it and going, which is the worst devil? You know, which is the worst
It does feel like the devil, the deep blue sea. I mean, all I would say is, we do have the long-standing special relationship with the. I would argue it's almost like when
We've always been their puppet.
Oh, but I would almost argue it's like the way, even if you sort of have a horrific argument with your sort of sister or whatever, there is always something underneath it that you know that there are ties that there are ties that bind. I just don't think we particularly understand China culturally, politically. We just don't have that kind of relationship with them. And of course, you know, it was David Cameron and George Osborne back in, I think, 2011, 12, sort of made a really big overture to China, the whole sort of Silken Road type trade routes and all the rest of it. And this goes to your point about, you know, the balance. We can't afford to sort of ignore ourselves or isolation ourselves out of the world's second largest economy. I think there are so many other factors, not necessarily all of which we understand, about going into relationships too quickly and too closely with China. As I say, it's probably only in the last 5 years we've started really seriously talking about the security, you know, data breach threat, be it about these Tesla cars that we just spoke about, be it about Huawei. I don't know if you caught a story that was pretty big in the Mail on Sunday over the weekend about this, you know, scandal about the big new Chinese embassy, which has received planning permission. It has these very weird
underground bunkers.
So the underground bunkers that sort of were in one earlier version of the sort of planning application, then have been sort of disappeared. It's not quite clear, and we do know that China has a history of spying on dissidents outside Chinese mainland. We do know it's doing not particularly nice stuff with the Uyghurs, Hong Kong, Taiwan.
Yeah.
I just think for all of the economic...
but it is a tricky path at the moment, because Canada, the EU shaking hands more closely with China now as well. And this is Trump's isolationist policies that are forcing people to find new... I mean, for goodness sake, China, North Korea and South Korea and Japan and are all chatting now. I mean, it's extraordinary that you've got these people who haven't spoken friendly terms to each other finally having a chat.
So that's almost into the territory of my enemy's enemy is my friend.
Yeah, exactly.
But
China
and
Mexico.
The US is not our enemy. I mean, maybe bring this sort of special... when I say special relationship, I don't mean we have this rosy, you know, skipping hand in hand in some kind of metaphorical transatlantic rose garden.
Can we trust them at the moment?
I don't think we can particularly, but I'd still rather throw the odds on into trusting even Trump's incarnation of the US than I would necessarily go full throttle in with China.
What if he,
really
though, turns it into a dictatorship, an authoritarian dictatorship? Because if he refuses to obey the courts, that's what he is.
But again, we're sort of in a devil deep blue sea argument because China is already an authoritarian dictatorship. So I think in even that circumstance, to answer the very specific question you put in front of me, I'd still rather go with the newer authoritarian dictatorship, which I still think people had a chance of overturning in the next 3.5 years, not one that's existed for about 2000.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it is really not even Sophie's choice. It's even worse than that. Right, quick break, and we'll be back to look at the Metro.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. At the moment, you're with Petrie, and with me is the fabulous Amy Fisher, who I'm now made her relive traumas earlier on. It's going to make me laugh for days. Thank you for that. Former Director of Communications for the Conservative Party. This was a historic moment. Trans women, not women. This was from Britain's highest court, has said in this landmark ruling, after years of bitter debate, 5 Supreme Court judges ruled there are only 2 biological sexes, male and female. It's odd that we had to go to court for that, but anyway, which were assigned at birth and can be recognised under the 2010 Equalities Act. Now, the Scottish Government introduced laws in 2018 to include people given a legal document called gender recognition certificates, and it would allow them to use single-sex areas. So these women Scotland, took this to the highest court in the land, and I thought the judge delivered really well on this.
Yes,
actually, didn't he? He was very.
He sort of, this is a really seismic. I mean, you've used it. Seismic, historic judgment, and by the highest court in the land, which might think it's made its pronouncement now and forever, but I don't think it's going to stop here at all. And yes, the summation that the judge came up with, and he was very clear. Look, it shouldn't be about one side winning or another side losing, and so the judgment itself was quite narrow. It just really has clarified the single point of law as to biological sex,
which was a biologically, but scientifically factual anyway. But you weren't allowed to say.
Yes, and then some of the other more measured commentators that I've heard talking about this in the few hours since it came out, I was particularly struck by one that said, there is going to be a cadre of people, trans people, who feel that this ruling is taking something away from them. The judge was at pains to make it clear that it was clarifying that there had only ever been 2 biological sexes. But as I say,
and he said the rest is down to society and
politics.
politics.
Society and individual choice and all the rest of it, again, which I don't think any reasonable sort of person was ever denying. So as I say, how the commentator put it was, there are going to be a group, some trans people who feel that something has been taken away from them, but that is because the problem lies in they were being told things by advocacy groups that were never true in the first place.
True.
There never were more than two biological sexes, but the way that some arguments were being presented by advocacy groups and activists, not lawyers, made people...
and not scientists.
And not scientists. So, you know, a bunch of people then are going to be in a position where they do feel something's being taken away, and we do need to be very careful in the next few days that as delighted as I am as a sort of woman and always wanted things to be very clear about this, as delighted as I'm about this, and I'm sure lots of other people are, we need to make sure it doesn't turn into some kind of, you know, we won, you lost, all of this kind of,
I agree
all of
with
this
you.
kind
Look,
of
I've
thing.
always welcomed trans women. I've spoken to a lot of trans women. I've got a couple of trans women who are friends, but they've always maintained they are trans women. They have never said. They say that they are aware that they are not women. And even when the whole debate and everybody was scared to say it, I'd be saying, look, trans women, I love you, welcome, you've made a great choice being a woman. I think if you could choose, why not choose to be a woman?
Well,
We're
yes.
the best. We're fantastic, choose to be a woman.
And hey, come join us.
Yeah, come join us.
Very welcome.
Absolutely. But what you cannot have ever done is walk in my shoes. You've walked in different shoes, and the journey you've taken has been extremely hard, and I would never take that away from anybody who's trans. I mean, the people thinking that this is somehow a choice have got to be off their nut, because why would you choose the most difficult, marginalised and hated group of people to be?
Well, I think I'm going to try and say this really sensitively, so if I get some bits mangled, but wasn't this kind of a large problem with it, that some of the cases that people found most difficult of, you know, trans men or trans women, but I think it was quite often a bit in the trans, you know, a man who'd been born biologically male was then, you've had these ghastly cases of when you had a rapist, and in the court, the prosecutor wasn't allowed to refer to his penis.
Yes.
They had to refer to her, and so then you also had people in women's prisons who were then being very aggressive, both sexually and physically. So sort of trans women who were then becoming aggressive towards women
because they hadn't gone through gender reassignment or any
exactly.
Of those
So
yeah,
in those examples, but that's what I mean about made it so unfair for everybody, because we're actually talking about a tiny minority,
I mean, literally,
minority people who are doing these horrible things. Yeah. Exactly, which then meant that everybody, trans men, trans women, people not in the trans communities but wanted to be welcoming to them, like literally everybody, apart from this tiny radical minority of radical people who frankly were sort of abusing the positions they were in female-only spaces. Yeah, that's what then made it so difficult for everybody, like the vast majority of which were nothing to do with those really egregious examples, but it was those examples that no one could wrap their head around of, hang on a second, how have we got here? How have we gotten here where we can't say that a woman has a cervix, or that you know a man doesn't have a penis, or does he have his penis, or is it his penis or her penis? Or
remember Keir Starmer couldn't say
what a woman was, and it got to such a level of kind of just bonkersness that everyone was so confused, and everyone was kind of scared to sort of say, well, you know, people like J.K. Rowling and Sharon Davies, who, you know, have made their views very clear on the need for women-only spaces. You know, the amount of trolling and hatred,
hideous, absolutely
hideous, and you know,
and maybe that will.
People became somewhat scared to speak what sort of seemed to me to be kind of quite common sense, to biological.
I had a trans friend of mine in the studio one time called Zoe, and I said to her, can a woman have a penis? And she said, I knew you were going to ask me that. And I said, well, there's a very simple answer, isn't there? And she went, yeah, there is. Trans women can. There you go, solved.
Well, I mean, like, but they were literally there. Well, now you've just said it. It's like, well, why? Yeah, why were they?
What was, you know, what is the anyway? Look,
but this will be this won't stop with the Supreme Court ruling. It will go to, you know, the ECHR.
I mean, like I said, I remember one of my old radio shows. I had a caller who would call me, and one day this person called me and said, Petrie, can you from now on? His dead name was Peter. Okay. And he said, can you from now on, she said, can you from now on call me Hayley? I said, yeah, absolutely. I have no problem with that at all, Hayley. Welcome to the light side, all this chat and everything. And so occasionally, I mean, mostly we would just talk about what the news was. He was phoning in about stories that I'd be talking about. But one time there was a trans story, and I was saying to him about trans, and he said, you know what? He said, I know that I've got body dysmorphia. I know that that's what it is, that I've always seen myself as a woman. And he said, and I know it's a mental affectation, if you like, affectation. And she was very, very open about it. And I miss talking to Hayley. I hope she's listening to this programme now, but I don't speak to her anymore. She was so open, and so many of the trans people that I've spoken to they just want to live a life that they've always imagined for themselves. They just want to live a quiet life. They don't want to be laughed at. So he would say to me, the one thing that I want more than anything in the world is to walk into a room and have nobody turn their head, which is difficult because she's absolutely beautiful and very tall and very slim. So, I mean, I'm like, well, I would, if you walked into a room, and not because I think you're trans, because I think you're stunning, and she is stunning. But, that's what most trans women and trans men, they just want to pass, they just want to live a life.
Just get
and they hate all this, these radical, we're women, we're men. It's just like, no, it doesn't really work. Right, the Telegraph, just before we go to a break, again covering the trans women are not women headline. I'm not sure that's entirely what the judge said, but
I think it is a bit more new.
Yeah, I think they're turning it, taking it a little bit further. Right, what about this story? First hints of alien life found on Ocean World, 124 light years away. This is transformational. There is no mechanism that can explain what we're seeing without life. An ocean world teeming with alien life may exist. 124 light years away. The Exoplanet K2-18b, I think that's a lovely name, isn't it? Which exists in the constellation of Leo, appears to have an atmosphere containing huge quantities of dimethyl sulfide, a chemical only produced by living organisms. Oh, dun dun dun.
Well, I've always thought it would be, part of everything else, a little bit arrogant to think that we were that there wasn't some kind of...
There has to be something else.
Well, look, we barely know what kind of, what exactly goes on at the bottom of the ocean on Earth.
I know.
So how would we know what's sort of going on out there? It was literally only, I think it was in the news yesterday, that we've actually just found existence of a giant squid that can grow up to being 7 metres long, the like of which we haven't seen since it was first discovered 100 years ago. So this is my point about, we don't really know what's going on our own planet in terms of life forms, so I don't think it's necessarily that surprising that there might be something else out there.
They're incredibly advanced and don't want a bar of us, right? Or
please don't say they're already here.
Or, no, I wasn't going to say that. I was going to say, or they're very low down and haven't, figured out that we evolved yet.
Okay.
So they're either at one end or the other.
If was genuinely scared, you've had to go, they may already be among us.
They may, the royal family are lizards. Did you not know that?
Oh, the David Icke line of thought.
Let's take a break. Back in a sec.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. It's good to have your company. With me, Amy Fisher, former Director of Communications at the Conservative Party. Let's have a look at the Times. Again, covering that story, that historic moment, equality policies in chaos as court defines a woman. Every organisation in Britain has been told to revisit its equality policies after the country's highest court ruled that trans women were not legally women. Women's rights campaigners celebrated the Supreme Court's declaration. So a lot of I was just saying during the break though, I wonder if the NHS has now got to review its language and saying a pregnant person,
yes,
so as not to offend. And like you said, a person with a cervix, or you've got advertisers saying people who menstruate, or things like when they're trying to sell products. I wonder if that will change now there's been a legal definition.
Look, I assume some of the sort of slightly madder stuff will fall away quickly. Like, there was a report out, I think, a couple of months ago about how certain public places were providing sanitary products in the men's toilets. I mean, why? So I assume some things like that, which are just clearly...
Well, I guess if you've got a trans man who hasn't had full, body...
Potentially, but then maybe if they had... Okay, maybe you're right to put me on that, because I would have thought a trans... maybe you're right to put me up on that. Maybe it's not as bonkers as it first seemed. But okay, I think maybe I've just demonstrated to myself the sort of every level at which all of these things about uses of
It's always been about trans women. It's never been about trans men.
Well, yes. So I think there's going to have to be a review pretty wholesale across the board, right, at the highest end of, where which particular prisons people go to, yes, through to the NHS, as to how expectant people, to use the example you have just done, provision of changing rooms, because there was this case, again, I think it was in Scotland, it's become very nasty about a nurse who refused to share changing room, and then it got sort of mired into cases of other things being accused. So yes, it's going to be across the board in every facet of daily life, like changing rooms in leisure centres and shops and all the rest of it. And so I think it may take, despite the sort of almost uniform way that I think pretty much every one of the mainstream papers, actually with the exception of the Eye, has put it on their front page, I still think the fallout of this is going to take some days, if not weeks, to really make itself felt.
I do feel really sorry though for those trans women who, like I said, like my friend Zoe, who just want to live a life, and she has had, she wouldn't mind me saying this because we've talked about it on air, but she's had all the surgery, and very much presents as female, and it would be very difficult for her to go into a men's toilet.
But this
so, is I do have sympathy for trans women who are just trying to live a life and just quietly go to the loo, and not upset anyone, and not try to make eye contact with anybody, and just go and do a wee in a public loo, and to be told that they might not be able to do that. I think they'll be very scared at the moment.
Yeah, but this is where the debate has already become quite mired, because again, certainly, I've seen comments coming out already about, a lot of trans women look much more like women than really butch lesbians, so should we not let butch lesbians try? It's like, hang on, but what world are we now making this about looks or judging people on appearances, or about their sexuality by the way, commentator, you seem to have picked in that.
Yeah.
Why are you saying butch lesbian? It might just be a sort of slightly, tall, manly-looking woman. Do you see what I mean? It's the whole
it's become so toxic.
The whole debate of this has gotten so toxic and so mired in actually other things than what I think you have just said your friend was getting at, which is they have made, well, not getting at, what they have decided to do is entirely their right, which is they have decided a way they wish to live their life, and if they're not harming others,
Which
then
so we're talking about a very small cohort.
Then very happy
anyway.
about it.
And most of those women, just those trans women, want to just live a life. So I don't know how this is. And like I said, we've had the tail wagging the dog, and these radical trans women who would call you and I Karens or TERFs because they're nasty.
Because they push it to be an attack on women. Yeah. This has nothing to do with what your friend Hayley, was that her name? Did you say?
Hayley.
What Hayley wanted to do and how she wished to present herself and live as a woman, and that's what she decided to do.
And I have no problem calling her.
That's nothing to do with a very hardcore, tiny minority who were almost who I'd say it was on the verge of them becoming an attack on, I would say, biological women for denying me as a biological woman who I am because they had decided something different. That is so entirely separate from the vast majority of what people who wish to identify as whatever agenda are about. That's not to do with them. And it was a very hardcore
but they
activist group which were
other,
creating, but almost hatred towards biological women by telling biological women you're somehow prejudiced and a horrid person yourself if you want to have a safe space in a domestic violence refuge.
Yeah,
that's where some of their arguments were going.
It really was, and I think that like you said, it's going to take a while to unravel this, but. It is a good decision. I just hope that the fallout, because everybody is concentrating on this tiny cohort of very radical people who were trying to push this agenda. I hope it doesn't harm those people who weren't.
Absolutely,
and just want to go to the loo.
Well, I don't think anybody. No.
Underage sex need not be reported in Romeo and Juliet exemption. Teachers will not have to tell police about sexually active teenagers after the Romeo and Juliet exemption from child abuse legislation won cross-party support. This is basically to do with consensual sexual relationships between young people, basically, and that would not be seen as child grooming. Is this sensible? I thought it was always that way anyway.
This is why I was sort of having a slight pause there, not least because when I first read the title, I was trying to remember exactly how old Romeo and Juliet were.
14 and 17.
Well, there we go. So that's where I said, oh yes, that's what that's about. To be honest, I look, instead of I'm reading it, it's sort of closing. Whereas there'd been a sort of presumption in favour of their common sense, as in if it's two 14-year-olds. The police or any prosecutors or CPS would take a view. It sounds like this is just sort of
saying no, that's
codifying that, and so in that sense, there's not a sort of wide departure.
Providing there's no imbalance in power and there's no imbalance in age, in that way, teenagers will be teenagers, I guess. Right, the Daily Mail again, front page, covers the victory for women and common sense. The Guardian again on the front page, as you said, has gone big on that. I want to get to the Star, actually. That's
I've just found mine.
Here we go. This is. Oh goodness me, Riri is looking very at the top there. Right. So the Daily Star thought for the day: be like Fred and wear sun protection. Now I don't know what the story is. Yabba dabba few. Stone Age men and women slapped on a secret location to protect themselves from the sun's harmful rays more than 40,000 years ago. Where do they get these stories?
And what's annoying is we've only got the front page and not page 7, where we would be able to have the full story on exactly.
Yeah, I'm just disappointed, as Sam just said there. He's just said in my ear, I didn't say history boffins, which is true. They normally do, don't they?
Boffin. The word is missing from here. That's a very true spot.
Cavemen wore sunscreen. Excellent to give us that news, the Daily Star, when we know it's going to rain over the Easter holidays there. But and chocolate meltdown. Are you a big chocolate fan?
I don't have much of a sweet tooth, which I sort of
Why did I say oh no, like it was a bad thing?
Which I
feel sorry for you.
which I very proudly declare all and sundry until anybody puts a packet of mini eggs in front of me.
The smell of them is so different to the taste, though.
Things are like crack. I literally ate like an entire packet on Sunday.
They really are.
So yes, I veer very much between like genuinely not really being a pudding person. I'd rather have like cheese. I don't eat a lot of, you know, sort of chocolate, but as soon as I'm presented with like a mini egg scenario, no, that's out the window. Nobody else is coming through those pastel-coloured, sugar-coated babies.
But the smell of them is so different, isn't it?
But they're not. But there's a consistency as well. It's not. Oh, I am. Yes, they are a bit of a. They're
not just like big Smarties. Because they got the crispy.
No, it's not. The outside. Sorry, you were not talking on your specialist subject.
Okay.
No, so that is what I will be partaking of this weekend.
Well, I wish you huge basketfuls of mini eggs. Thank you, Amy. It's been a brilliant hour. I've really enjoyed it. Amy Fisher, former Director of Communications of the Conservative Party. Coming up, it's just you and me and Humphrey, actually, who's sitting quietly on the desk here, sound asleep. So you, me and Humphrey will be chatting, and I want to know if you've ever had to deliver some awkward news. You'd have to go quite a long way to beat Amy's stories. I can't wait to hear more of those at some point. But have you ever had to deliver awkward news to somebody? Maybe you just don't like somebody's girlfriend or boyfriend and you've had to come out and say it. Or somebody in your office stinks and you've had to tell them that is a real problem for you. I don't know, maybe you've been the recipient of such a conversation. Give me a call. We're lightening it up as we head into the long weekend. So make sure you pick up the phone and let's chat about it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
That's funky. Funky tunes on Talk. Who would have thunk it? Right, yes, it's Talk here, and it's Petrie with you until 1 o'clock. And this is the time where we get to talk, we get to chat. Sorry, I'm just looking down. If you're watching, I've got Humphrey in the studio, who's my 9-week-old puppy, and he was crying at the door because he wanted his mum. So he's asleep on the desk. But anyway, if you want to see him, I will lift him up and show you. So send me some messages if you want to see Humphrey, and I'll be very happy to because I just adore him. He's just wonderful. Anyway, enough. Oh, what are you doing? Oh, there you go. He's just falling asleep again. Right. So, what we want to talk about this morning, I wanted to lighten things up because we've had such a heavy time of it. The news at the moment is just the worst. It is the pits. It exhausts me on a daily basis because I have to keep up with it. I'm into geopolitics, as you know, so I'm reading about Iran and Russia and Ukraine and America and China and Taiwan. And I mean, it does my brain in sometimes. And I usually have to come into this studio and be quite sensible and discuss the things, you know, and be very grown up and all of that, and that's what you would expect from me, and I enjoy doing it. I love doing it, but sometimes my brain just gets fried, and I know yours does too. There's so much bad news at the moment. I thought we would just have a bit of fun this morning because I'm off over the Easter weekend. I'll be back on Tuesday, so I just thought we'd have a bit of fun, and I want to hear if you've ever had to have an awkward conversation. Right, so maybe it was to do with, I don't know, somebody who had BO, or somebody who had bad breath, or you had to tell your mother-in-law that your children don't like her, or that you've had to say, just deliver really awkward news. And this is, I mean, I saw this today and I thought, yeah, that's a good peg to hang this on. And that was the French tennis star who was told she needs deodorant and smells really badly by her British rival, Harriet Dart, who's since apologised. But still, you know, saying something like that, telling somebody that they smell, or telling somebody that they've got bad breath, or, I mean, having to have those awkward conversations. Have you ever had them? I mean, maybe you've been on the other end of it. Maybe somebody's come up to you and said, look, I really need to tell you this, but I don't want to tell you this, but I feel I have to. And I've had to do it a couple of times in my life. And there was one time that a friend of mine, one of my best friends, was going out with this guy who was an absolute scumbag. I mean, the worst kind of scumbag you've ever, and he treated her so badly. You know, all of us as friends were I mean, when I mean badly, I mean really, really badly. And she was with him for quite a long time, and then they broke up, and I was really relieved. With my friends, I always know I'm a very plain speaker, and I'll always say what I feel, and sometimes that can be hurtful, but it is said with love. I always say it from a point of, I love you and I need you to know this. So I'd never really liked him, and she always really knew that. And then she got back together with him, and she said to me, look, is there any way that you and he would ever be in the same room again? Is there anything that I can do that would ever put you in the same room as him again? And I said, yeah, there's one. And she said, oh, what's that? And I said, well, if he's dead, so I can kick him to make sure. I genuinely promise you that's what I said. Which probably didn't, well, I know didn't go down very well at the time, but subsequently she said, you know, she was, at the time she said she was quite hurt by that, but when I said that, now she says, no, I can entirely see what you mean, but I literally said, yeah, if he's dead, so I can kick him to make sure. So I'm not one to mince my words, but I always do it from love. I never do it from anger, and I never do it from hate. If I don't like you, I don't bother. I don't care. Yeah, so that's you know, that can be quite awkward. So I want to hear your stories. Have you ever had to do anything similar? Yeah, give me a call. I just thought, let's lighten things up. 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at national rate, I am obliged to tell you. And you can text as well, put the word talk and your message to 87222. I don't have any messages through yet, but let me see if I've got... now I've got one. Right. Listen, before I go to the calls, this message from Kaz. Right. You need to, first of all, you need actually to tell the police. And I know that sounds like a really big thing to do, but if it's happened to you, the potential is that this has been done to other people. I'm sorry to be cagey about this, but I just want to protect Kaz from this, in case somebody recognises this. But Kaz, yes, your friend needs to know, and actually so do the police. This is really serious. It's not just an awkward conversation. This is criminal, and there might be other people who this person has done that to. Okay. Serious note there. Please make sure you do. Okay. If you need any help with that, then don't hesitate to call. Okay. Right. Let's lighten things back up again and talk to Gary. Gary in Lincolnshire. Gary, awkward conversations.
Not so much awkward. A crowd of us, we used to go into this social club, and this chap moved on to the area near the club, and he started coming into the club. He was a really polite bloke, but he was unkempt. He had like black fingernails, greasy hair, dirty teeth. He didn't stink like a bag man, but he smelled.
Yeah.
Well, because he was such a nice bloke, no one had the nerve to sort of like tell him. So one of our crowd, who was a bit of a joker, he said, "Tell you what," he said, I'm going to get a box. He said, "I'm going to get a flannel, some soap, some deodorant, shaving foam, razor, etc." On a Saturday night, they used to have music on Saturday evening. And in the interval, I can't remember this bloke's name because it was so long ago. They called him up on the stage.
Oh, no.
And they presented him with this box of toilet.
Oh, no. That's horrific.
But he said, "Thank you very much."
Oh, did he take it well?
Yeah. And we was all cute, and he come down to the stage and he said, "Thank you, people."
Oh, no. I suppose that's one way of doing it. Did he clean his act up?
No.
Ah. Yeah, maybe it was too subtle.
The other thing about it was, because he used to bring bottles of homemade wine into the club. I never had any. And I was saying to your colleague, I don't know if it's true. Apparently, he said he used to tread the grapes in his bowl.
Oh, no! With his dirty toenails? And people were drinking this stuff?
Some people.
Oh, that's gross. Did you used to watch people drinking this stuff?
No, he used to bring it in. He used to bring it into the club and give it away.
Oh, no, that's gross. But isn't it interesting that the nicer the person is, the more difficult it is to deliver the news? Because if you hadn't liked him, you might have said, "Oi, mate, you stink." But when it's nice people, you want them to know because you like them.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't an unintelligent, stupid person. I mean, we used to play snooker with him, and he just stunk.
Oh, God, that is. But to take him up on the stage, to give him a box of cleaning stuff.
And it had all the coloured tissue paper around the edge to make it look
Oh, no. Oh, beware of homemade wine as well, by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
People were lurching after that when they heard that.
Oh, God. Maybe that's the cleanest his feet ever got.
I would have liked to have seen the bottom of the bath, would you?
Oh, yeah, if he doesn't clean himself, he probably hasn't cleaned the bath either.
You can imagine what the plug hole was like.
Oh, no. Did people used to pick hairs out of the wine?
Yeah,
Oh, that is brilliant. Gary, thank you. You've kicked that off so well. Thank you so much. Oh, that was brilliant. But that's not a really subtle way, is it, to tell people that they stink by buying them some... Well, I suppose it didn't work. Right, so I want to know about some awkward conversations. Do join in. Like I said, we're just lightening things up this morning. We've had a lot of heavy news recently, so I just thought we'd go out on a laugh. Sarah is in Liverpool. Morning, Sarah.
Evening, Petrie.
How are you? All right.
Yeah, not too bad.
Awkward conversations.
Well, I've had a couple of those in my time. I've usually been the one who someone's tried to direct something at, but you'd have to turn the tables. I mean, there was one. It was when I was working in the medical school, and used to get loads of people in, from all over the place. And we had an American in for it was from I think he don't know where he was what uni he was from, but he was doing a stint over in ours, doing a reciprocal thing. And we were all having a drink after work, and this guy had been there for a few weeks, and he'd spent all the time. All the girls, he'd be going, if you'd look so much better if you had fillers or this or that. I mean, this is before fillers was the only filler that anyone ever heard of in Liverpool was B&Q. And we're like, you what? I mean, toxic whoopee cushions were sort of not really the done thing unless you had more money than sense.
Right.
And he'd worked his way around all the girls in the department, and they'd all, I don't know what to say. I thought, why is it always left to me? So I knew my turn was coming, and I waited and bided the time, and he went, and he looked at me, and believe you me, I am no oil painting. And I went, and he said to me, oh, well, you'd look so much better. You've got extensions in your hair, and you've got
That's so rude.
Wait for this. We went and got some orthodontic dentistry, and you got your eyes done, and you got a little bit of a facelift. At the time, I was 27. I would go, channeling Mrs. Brown. That's nice. And he's going, oh, yes, and you should get this done, and you could do with some lip liposuction, and you could do with having your legs lengthened. I thought, I'm only 5'7", so what, do you want me to be 6'2"? So I let him carry on, rattling off all the things that were wrong with me. Oh, and whilst you're at it, go and get those extensions as well. I thought, oh, well, here we go. I said, finished? He said, yes. I said, no, I'll get all that done when they bring out personality surgery, because your need's greater than mine.
Very good answer.
Oh, well, the next one was, when you're dealing with somebody who's a bit of a bridezilla. It's wicked to mock the afflicted as they fly in on a broomstick. You always know, the trailing confetti and approbation. Nothing's ever right for them. Yeah. And this particular person I shall name, shall we say, person X. I was told by their soon-to-be other half that I had to go with them to choose this outfit that I was supposed to be wearing at the wedding. I thought, with their taste, the answer's no. I thought it's going to be the worst thing you could ever imagine. Like massive puff sleeves,
lilac and
billion
yellow,
buttons, 2 billion yards of tulle, and no style. And the worst colours out. I thought it could be all the ones that make you look like you've just been exhumed. Tutankhamun would look better in it. And round we went, all round town, and I'm going. And I was at work at the time, and I said, look, I am sorry I'm late. Well, I would have just walked out on my boss. I said, well, you can do that in where you work, but you can't do that where I work. You will get the sack, and it is a vocation, not what you do, okay? With face on it, oh, please.
Really?
Oh, I'm not being funny. It made a lemon pull a face. I thought, oh, dear. They'll be asking for you, getting the Angus jury's business out to you, my girl. So, next thing. I got dragged all around town, and I knew what suits me. And she's going, oh, I won't be having anything like that. Anything that looks really classy and elegant. Oh no, you don't want to be wearing that. Remember the puffball skirts?
Yeah, I had one. Yeah.
With frills at the bottom. This one. She picked one.
No, I didn't have frills.
Puffball with frills round the bottom. This is one from about 15 years ago, and a sequin top. The ones that are about the size of a 10-shilling piece. Right. I said, that'd look gorgeous on you. And I looked at it and I just went, no. She said, and we went around every shop, and she's going, you're so awkward to buy for. I said, yeah, because you've got no taste.
Oh. And also, that's not much of a friend that wants you to look horrible, right?
Well, actually, it was my sister-in-law.
Oh, no. Sorry.
And I thought, well, you see, I don't know what the problem was. I thought, oh dear, a team of psychiatrists have a field day with some bridezillas. I think what it is with bridezillas is they want to look their best, but they want everybody else to look rubbish. And they go, and when she said, when she said that to me, she said, "Oh yes, well I know what everybody wants, and I know I've already picked out what your dad's going to wear for the wedding. I wouldn't mind. My dad had Taylor Bespoke from years ago in his wardrobe, and he said, if you think I'm wearing that old rag that she's picked out, the answer is a definite no." He said, "And as for that tie, oh please, he said, I'm not being funny. When I was in the pub, I used better cloths to mop the cellar." The answer is no.
But you see, I think that Northerners have got a really good turn of phrase when it comes to putting somebody down or giving that news like, "Oh, you've got no taste." You know, I don't know whether Southerners would get away with it with quite the same grace as the Northerners, Liverpudlians, Mancunians. And Scots. I just think they've got a much blunter way of dealing with people, which I admire. Because I'm very blunt, sometimes too blunt, but like I always say, for me it always comes from love. It genuinely does. I wouldn't care if I don't care about you. I'm not going to tell you that dress looks horrible, right? But if I love you, then I will. But but I am quite blunt. But you know, when my sister got married, her sister-in-law. I suppose my sister-in-law, anyway, whatever, did not approve of the marriage, right? She did not approve of my sister marrying her brother. And so she wore a white dress.
No, that's going too far.
She wore a white dress to the wedding.
Oh, no. That is...
Oh, my God.
Wrong.
Yeah, we all went, literally, all of us were jaw on the ground. A white long dress.
Oh, no.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, black, I can understand, but white, oh no.
Yeah, that is brutal thing to do. I mean, really,
oh dear.
I've never forgiven her.
Do it with a bit of class. Don't do it. Don't go out. If you're going to be awkward, do it with class and a bit of styling and the best possible taste. Don't go, oh no.
Unbelievable. What an absolute cow.
Don't use a ton of bricks.
Yeah, what a cow. Anyway, listen, it's lovely talking to you, Sarah. I've got to go because I've got to take a break. But before I do that, Angie has said she wants to see Humphrey. There he is. Hello, Humphrey. He's very sleepy. So I'll show him again a little bit later. Quick break.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good morning to you. It is Petrie here with you, and we're talking about awkward conversations. Sam says, I had an awkward conversation the day I went to a GP with a swollen knee. He needed to check my groin. I was going commando. Yeah, you wouldn't expect that, would you? You're just going in to have your knee checked. He said, also, can I see Humphrey? It was my birthday before 12 and it's been rubbish. And that's from Sam in Lancashire. I'm so sorry you've had a rubbish birthday, but here he is. Look, he's just sleeping on my shoulder. You're going to move and knock the microphone. There we go. I'll put you back on the desk. So there he is. That's for you, Sam, as well. There you go. Say happy birthday, Sam. Happy birthday. There we go. Oh. Little baby, he's very, very sleepy now. Right, so back to your calls. I want to hear awkward stories. I want to hear about awkward situations and awkward things you've had to deliver and awkward things. Because I think as a race, I think the British are really awkward. We are. That's why when somebody bumps into us, we apologise, right? Because we're just so awkward. And I did that the other day. I don't know who bumped into who, but myself and this woman, and we just turned around. Oh God, I'm so sorry. I wasn't paying. We both gave excuses. Like, oh, I'm so sorry. I wasn't paying attention. Oh no, neither was I. I was looking for. I mean, it was just like a whole conversation about being awkward and awkwardly bumping into each other. I think we are just awkward. So let's get some more stories. Dominic, first-time caller from Hull. Hello, Dominic.
Hello, mate.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good, I'm very well. I'm enjoying this, bit of lightness in the darkness. So tell me your story.
So I was studying at university, and I was coming home for weekends and for holidays. And my dad, in the meantime, had met a woman, and they were living together, and they were.
I have a horrible feeling I know where this is going.
Full steam ahead, yeah. But I'm a rugby player, so I play rugby quite regularly, and I was at home for the weekend, and I had a rugby injury, and my soon-to-be stepmom offered to massage my legs for me, and. To cut a long story short, I'm now in a relationship with my what was stepmom, and I had to break that to my dad. The news to my dad that I was, squaring his wife away. Oh
my God, that didn't go in the. I thought you were going to say, as a rugby player, you'd slept with her before and you had to tell him that you'd. Oh my God!
Yeah, no.
How did that conversation? Yeah. How did that conversation go?
Well, not very well. But I mean, I'm still with her now. We're quite happily together. Yeah, I mean, it took a bit of getting around, a bit of negotiating. Obviously, Sunday dinners and that are a little bit awkward.
Oh no! So you're still in contact with your father?
Yeah.
How long ago was this that this happened?
About 6 months.
Oh my God!
Yeah. I mean,
oh my God, Dominic!
It's quite a new.
This is my favourite story of the year so far.
It's quite a fresh wound.
Oh, but please just talk me through. I want to hear. So you went, Dad, I've got something to tell you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what?
And then what did you say? Come on, I want all the juice.
You just got to rip it off, right? So I just said, this is what happened. And then, this happened and this happened. And
so you had an affair with your soon-to-be stepmother.
Well, yeah, I mean, she would have been my stepmother.
She would have been your stepmother?
She's now his daughter-in-law, or she was. Well, listen, what can I tell you?
The tangled webs we weave.
Yeah, she gives a good massage. What can I tell you?
Clearly, a very good massage. Did you know she fancied you before then?
No, not.
Did she know she fancied you before then?
I don't think so. I think it kind of hit her around about the time it hit me.
Is there an age difference between you, or was your dad going out with a younger woman?
Well, I mean, he was going out with a younger woman, and I'm now with an older woman. So there's probably, I think there's like an 8-9 year difference between me and her.
That's perfect, actually. That's a good age. That's a good age gap. Oh my God! hours.
To be fair, I mean, my dad's coming to terms with it. He's like trying to wrap his head around it.
And how long were they together for?
4 years.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is just getting worse and worse. Oh my God, Dominic.
Well, listen, she's very good at massaging. What can I tell you?
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, good on her. Bagged herself a younger rugby player. I mean, who wouldn't do that? But, oh my God, so they were together for 4 years. Okay, and then you had to tell your dad, look, did you say, look, we're in love, or we've been, you know, smashing or whatever?
Well, I said, listen, I've been giving her a good hiding, and I think...
You said I've been giving her a good hiding.
Yeah, and I think that we are headed towards being in love. But listen, I was as, you know, sensitive as I could have been.
As sensitive as you could have been.
But listen, he knows me, so he knows the kind of person I am. So.
And what was his immediate reaction to you giving her a good hiding?
Well, I don't know. He wasn't happy.
Oh my God! And so you told him, she didn't. You were the one that broke the news. You decided that it would be you.
Well, she decided that she was going to go shopping that day, and I took him for a beer, and I said to him, listen, this is how it is. But to be fair, I don't think it'd been that right for a while.
Yeah, maybe. So, clearly not. But then she came home and you said, look, I've told him.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I messaged her and said, I'd give it a swerve if I were you.
And how soon after that did she move out?
Well, he helped her move out that day.
I bet he did. Yeah. And did you move in straight away with her or not?
No, definitely not. No, I'm not an idiot.
You don't rush into crazy situations, do you, Dominic?
No, I'm not going to fly into anything like that. No, definitely not. But, you know.
Oh my God! Honestly, I will never. I take hundreds of calls, thousands of calls through my lifetime. I will never forget this one. This is my absolute favourite.
Well, thank you so much.
But I wish you well. You better keep an eye on her. You don't have any rugby playing friends, do you, that come round?
I might bloody need it. Let's be right. Well, listen, God bless you. Thank you
look,
so much.
any of your rugby playing friends that get injured, they're not going anywhere near your house, right?
Well, if they do, then I'll be with Dad.
Oh, my goodness me. Dominic, well, your dad is a very forgiving guy, and I wish you luck for Christmas. And
Thanks, mate. God bless.
Take care. Oh, my God. I can't even process that. I'm going to need to take a break. I'm back in a sec.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm still crying with laughter at Dominic's story. What we need now is Dominic's dad to phone in. So if you're listening, we'd love your side of the story. When it comes to awkward conversations, that is probably one of the best. But I love the idea of Dominic saying to his dad in the kitchen, "I'm giving her a good hiding." I've never heard that expression before. That is what a romantic man he is. Dominic, thank you. So more stories, please. Come on, we all need this laugh. Life has just been way too serious for way too long. So let's just enjoy the next half an hour. Carol's in Manchester. Morning, Carol.
Hi there. Before I start, have a fantastic Easter anyway.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
absolutely amazing Easter.
Bless you, and you.
So I'll start with my 11-year-old who's 30 now.
Right.
You know, like with her, God bless her, you know, like with her, very much a tomboy and everything. Went to secondary school, which is a Catholic school, as anyway, with Catholics and whatever. And she wanted to know why she couldn't play cricket with the boys, because she was the only cricketer who played cricket, which she played cricket before that in a different way and whatever. And my God, did she spit the boot in. And the sports teachers there, you know, like they were absolutely, I had phone calls, I had everything. She was there with the boys, you know, like with the cricket team, sat on there, you know, like at the side, giving it out, you know, like what they did wrong and what rubbish they were, and they were rubbish, absolutely rubbish. I could get my girls' team out here, which she never had a girls' team, because it was quite rare, you know, like there to have a girls' team. Even in the area that we live, which is literally cricket team from cricket team that are here, you know, like domestic and that. And she developed the first girls' cricket team in the district. Yeah, with her. And then it was dead funny because she'd been doing that and the boys absolutely adored her. And I think she got to about 14, and the sports teacher, he actually said, "Would you like to join the cricket team?" She went, "Oh, no, Elle, no chance. Not on this earth would I like to. You're not good enough, you know, like." And I've got a phone call and phone call and phone call. Anyway, only on the last year before she left secondary school did she go with the boys' team, and they won. They actually won. They actually won everything and whatever in that. And it was a credit to her of the way that she were. And it was a credit as well because in the area that we lived, there weren't many girls' teams, and she developed it with another girl as well and developed a girls' team. Went on to Lancashire Cricket Club, a coach there, which I'm very, very proud of her. We very, very love cricket and whatever. My husband loves football there, but we love cricket and whatever. And yeah, I'm dead proud of her. And the phone calls that I had was...
So she's the one that really had the awkward conversations then. She was able to push herself forward.
I'll be honest, right, she didn't care. It was just like she went for whatever she wanted to go. I'm so proud of her.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I was a little bit, especially when she was about 11, you know, like, am I doing, is it this or whatever? My 3 children, I do develop in their own way, but I just thought she's pushing the boundaries too much. You know, like the ed teacher on the phone to me, you know, like with her. We laugh about it now, and she has. She's not like, you know, like big-headed or whatever. She just absolutely loves her cricket. And not only that, she's not just done cricket, she's done other sports things and developing girls. Let's just go there. Girls development, in that. And it's been great. Absolutely fun. And I'll be honest, some of the conversations that I've had is probably like, maybe not as much as the person that you just been speaking to. Dominic. But I'll be honestly, we've had absolutely, it's been.
I mean,
so
I've
fun.
had awkward conversations with teachers and things over my boy. I mean, my boy one time, he had the teacher confiscated, I think, his beanie, and. And I had been talking to my son. I mean, talking to him about TWOC, which is taking without consent, right? Which is a term. People steal cars, right? That's a TWOC. It's taking without consent. So my son called the police and said that his beanie was taken without consent, which it was. And you reap what you sow, don't you? So he knew about TWOC, he knew about the law, and the police turned up at his school, and I had the very awkward conversation with the teacher, and I said, well, he's not wrong. He's not actually wrong. It was taken without consent, because that is the truth. But it wasn't clearly a criminal issue. The police thought it was funny. Yeah.
What you just said there, I've had a few of them with my other children with it.
But I'll always defend my boy. I was like, yeah, he did the right thing.
I love as well, your dog. And funny enough, the girl that I'm talking about now is just had. Is had a puppy, her baby and her fiance. They've got their puppy and whatever. And my God, it's just as cute as yours. It's absolutely.
I've just realised that Humphrey and I are wearing matching clothes. He's got his yellow.
I did see something there, with it and that. But
yeah, he's got his yellow collar on. I mean, that's what he always wears. But we're matching. Because he's matching his brother Bailey, the big dog. So they've both got the same collars. And now I'm dressing like them.
It's great. On this, I watch your programme all the time, and then I'll chat when I want to chat. If I get in, I get in. I don't. But what I love tonight, with it, like you said, is the world is so serious.
Oh, it's so awful at the moment.
And I am a very serious person like yourself. And I really enjoyed tonight, to have that chill out, just
good. I'm glad, because honestly, it's just like yesterday was such a tough day, actually, for me. And I constantly, I have to look at the news all the time because that's my job. Yeah. I can't get a break from it. Because if I take a break, I miss something really important, and so I don't. And I'm a journalist through and through.
And it is. And like journalists. I mean, and I know one of your people said to me, "I'm not. I'm just. I love the world. I have to know what's going on. And sometimes, like my children say, Mum, sometimes it's not beneficial."
People always say to me, you've got to switch off, and I'm like,
exactly.
I can't switch off.
You need that switch, and it's like tonight, I did switch off. I went away. I went to Manchester with my husband. We always do it. We live in Manchester, but we have an holiday in Manchester. For 4 days, we have an holiday in Manchester.
That's so funny. Really? Yeah. Well, people do that in London as well.
You don't see Manchester.
True.
If you live in Liverpool, I can guarantee you 90% of people do not know how Liverpool is. I mean, the culture there is amazing in Liverpool.
Yeah, they always say you should try and be
amazing culture in Manchester.
Yeah, you should always try and be a tourist in your own city. And with London, you just take it for granted, right? I get driven across town going past the Buckingham Palace, and I think, gosh, I'm so lucky. People pay a lot of money.
When I've been to London, it's like, I mean, oh my God, because I love buildings and everything.
Extraordinary.
And I love everything that goes on, history and whatever. Absolutely.
Yeah, and London at night is just stunning, and I never take it for granted now.
The only thing is, with Manchester, we had good weather all my friends were saying, "Oh, you had good weather." No, we didn't. You know why? Because we had buildings so high. They were that high. So when the sun came out, we were sheltered with a lot of it.
Yeah, Manchester is a fabulous city.
And it is.
It really
and with great people as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Just like yourself.
Well, they're Northerners. They're brilliant. Listen, it's great to talk to you, Carol. You have a wonderful Easter. And I think I'm going to take a break.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there and good morning. My little, can you see him? If you're watching on YouTube, there's a new co-presenter, but I'm telling you, he's not pulling his weight. He's just sleeping. Which is not good. This is Humphrey. And Humphrey has got a little fan club already. Humphrey is a delightful addition to your show, Petrie. Yeah, look at that. Oh, I mean, come on. Come on. Look at, I mean, sorry if you're listening on radio, but I just can't take my eyes off him. He's just gorgeous. And thank you, Lorraine. And then Joanna says, oh, Humphrey, when he gets any bigger, you'll have to take him for the longest walk to make him sleep like that. I know. I'm in that phase of him supposedly sleeping 20 hours a day. But the trouble with this is, you know, like when you've got a baby, like actual human baby, when they're asleep at the wrong time, you think, oh, I should really wake them up because he's not going to sleep through the night. So my night is ruined because he's just absolutely out. That's because he keeps running down to see the boys at Talk Sport. Yes, but Joanna, I know. Phil says, hi Petrie, thank you for another fascinating show. You're very welcome. I'd definitely love to see your puppy. There he is. Dogs give so much joy to the world, and I hope you have a lovely weekend. Phil from Devon. Thank you, Phil. They do. I think they're better than humans, all humans really, but I just adore them. And so thank you for that. And Jill has said, I hope you have a wonderful Easter with Humphrey Bailey and Evil Edith. Evil Edith. I'm not giving her a bad rap, actually. I mean, that is being nice about her. She truly is a very special creature. But I mean, I do love her, but she is nasty piece of work. Terrified of the puppy. So she's getting her own comeuppance at the moment. Right, back to your calls now. And Chris is in Epsom. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Petrie.
Hey, what's your story?
Well, your furball is very, very cute.
Isn't he? Look at that.
Watch out, there's a Humphrey about.
Exactly, that's what I always say at home.
my grandmother and father were Humphreys, and when they bought, do you remember, which was it? What was it? It was the milk, wasn't it? It was the milk.
It was milk, you're absolutely right. It was adverts for milk. They were trying to get kids to drink their milk by saying, watch out, there's a Humphrey about. And there would be a straw, a red and white straw coming in to try and steal your milk.
That's right.
Yeah.
They called Thatcher the milk
snatcher. Yeah. So what's your story, Chris?
Right, I'm going to tell you a very, very, very funny and fond story. Before I do that, I don't want to put it down on it, but I want everybody to take a minute and think of the poor 3 prison officers that were attacked with the woman getting boiling melted butter thrown in the face.
Disgusting, yeah.
And the 2 guys stabbed to within an inch of death, still laying in hospital with life-changing injuries, stable but critical.
Yeah, good point.
All right. Okay, so this is a very fond memory. 39 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
I was 25. My girlfriend was 20. I'd recently moved home back to my parents' house to get a job back in London. I'd been living down the coast. My parents were very active, and they used to split their time. One weekend they'd be on their boat, another weekend they'd be at their caravan, so my mum could be near her sister. And I said goodbye to my parents on the Friday evening. They were off to their boat for the weekend. I took my girlfriend out. We had a few drinks, and we came back to the house. And we ordered a pizza from a very well-known pizza supplier. In those days, they used to give you a little fridge magnet. And you know, the telephone numbers are 0207 0208.
Oh, yeah.
Now, well, that just had the 7 numbers. It was 393, then 4 other digits. And I've still got that fridge magnet on the fridge. And we had that pizza and a bottle of wine. One thing led to another. We got a bit fruity. And we went upstairs, went into my bedroom, and things got quite heated.
Mm-hmm.
And we were both enjoying ourselves. And I was slapping her bottom and telling her she was a naughty girl. And the bed headboard was bashing against the wall. It was quite a racket. And she was making lots of noise, and so was I. Anyway, we eventually went to sleep. In the morning, I came downstairs to put the kettle on, and my father was in the kitchen.
Right.
And I said to him, Pops, what are you doing here? And I've recently lost him, actually, so this is a real fond memory. So, Pops, what are you doing here? He said, well, we were on our way to the boat, and the car broke down.
Oh.
And it's in the garage, which is why I thought they were still away. So I said, you've been here all night? He said, yes. We were trying to get to sleep early, but we had to listen to you for a couple of hours last night. So I must say, your mother was asking, what's he doing? And I had quite a good relationship with my father, which actually in the end was an excellent relationship. But he didn't make me suffer at all. I won't mention the girl's name because this was 39 years ago.
Yeah.
And she's married to somebody else with children now, in case anybody recognises who I am. But she stayed upstairs.
I'd be so embarrassed.
Until well into the afternoon before she came down. And my parents,
that is so awkward.
Blessed. I was blessed with wonderful parents. They were together for 70 years, married for 64, and I never heard them have a row. But they were very, very straight and very old school. The type of things that I was saying to my girlfriend at the time and slapping her bottom wasn't the sort of thing that they would do.
I love the idea of your mother saying, what is he doing? What is he actually doing?
I was saying things like, who's your daddy now?
Oh,
going through the whole verbal, let's talk dirty bit. And I still, that fridge back
that
there,
poor girl, though. No, I mean, you wouldn't ever want to. I think I'd have just said, I'm staying here forever. I'm never coming out of this room.
She really was mortified, because she was very, very straight as well. She was mortified, absolutely mortified. And that fridge, as I say, it was 39 years ago. That fridge magnet is still on the fridge.
That's brilliant. I mean, what a great... You must have a little smile on your face every time you see that. That is fantastic. I mean, you're lucky with your parents, but I can't help but feel just so awkward for that young woman. Having to look your parents in the eye when she left. That's brilliant. Oh, Chris, thank you. Thank you very much indeed for that. That is another excellent, excellent story. Oh, my goodness. That is just brilliant. So, awkward conversations. I've got loads of calls on the line here. We're just trying to get somebody put through before the end of the show. But in the meantime, this little one, Josh. Let's talk to Josh. Good morning, Josh.
Hiya. Good morning.
Good morning. So you've had an awkward conversation.
I have indeed. Yes.
Go on then. Tell me all about it.
So not long ago, I booked myself into a bit of therapy after a pretty rough breakup.
Right.
All was going well until my therapist asked me the question of who it was exactly I was talking about. And obviously, through the time that we'd been talking through my problems and everything, I believe he's put two and two together. I obviously used real names. He's realised it was his daughter that I was talking about.
Oh, that is awkward.
It is a little bit awkward.
So were you basically just slagging her off and saying...
I mean, to be honest, it was a very difficult time for me. She left me quite abruptly, which was fine with me after I figured out what had been going on from her side. But it was, as you can imagine, a lot more awkward when he had to hear what I had to say.
And you had no idea that this therapist was your ex-girlfriend's dad.
Nope, not at all. I was none the wiser until the dreaded conversation that we had.
Oh, that is so. What did he say after that? What did you do?
So initially, when he sort of approached the idea, I did bring up the fact that I probably shouldn't be disclosing who exactly it is, but I feel like after the events that unfolded, I needed to tell him anyway. If you'd like a little bit more context as to what happened.
Go on.
So I found out that she was doing OnlyFans without me knowing.
Right.
I wouldn't have necessarily minded that much, but she was sleeping with a lot of her clients, obviously while still being with me, and didn't tell me a thing.
Wow, that's a different level of betrayal, isn't it?
It is. It brings into a lot of things into question, hence the therapy.
Yeah, of course.
But then I had to look her dad in the eyes and...
Did her dad not know that she was...
He did not, but he certainly does now.
Oh, gosh. Accidental revenge. It's a wonderful thing. But, oh, my God. So he was hearing all about this girl who was basically prostituting herself?
Yeah, for lack of a better term, yeah, of course.
But if we're talking about clients, right? And so he's hearing about this girl and probably thinking, "Gosh, that's really difficult," and then finds out that it's his daughter. Well, you couldn't make that up.
I think the worst bit was the fact that obviously I'd been telling him all these things and how it made me feel as a man and everything like that. It brought into a lot of questions such as that. For him to then realise that it was his daughter that I was talking about after asking me, she's the one that's put me through all this. I'm sure they had a very fruitful conversation after the fact about what she was doing with her life and where she was at. I mean, obviously, her dad's quite well off. He's a therapist. Yeah. He's doing well.
Did he make you pay for the session?
Oh, yeah, of course he did, yeah. Yeah, it's a bit of an insult to injury, isn't it, really?
Yeah, really. I would have said, listen, mate, you don't need to pay me for this one. Oh my God! Have you gone and got another therapist, or did that sort of cleanse your palate, so to speak?
Since then, I've done a lot of self-healing, and I've realised that a lot of that was not on me.
That's not you. No. It's all on her. All of it.
It's all on her.
All of
it's
it.
all on her.
Yeah.
And in all honesty, I think after the end of it, I've come out laughing because she's obviously had to have this very, very, very awkward conversation with her dad. I feel like, if anything, she should be the one calling.
She should be the one calling in about an awkward conversation. Or well, at least if she needs a therapist, she's got one in the family.
Oh well, you'd think they'd see things like that, but evidently not. So. Yeah,
there's a lesson in this. Always make sure you meet the parents so that you know if they're your therapist or not.
Well, I think that's obviously the relationship didn't last very long.
No.
Because of the things that I found out. I found out very quickly and very unfortunately through one of my friends.
No.
Who sent me a video of. Well, I don't know if it's very appropriate for radio, but I'm sure you can put two and two together.
Yeah.
As to what I saw and how exactly I reacted to that information.
So he sent you a video. He found her on